think, no. How many people? We have just one person online? Okay. I think we're supposed to have 3 assembly people call in, right, Brenda?
Sorry?
Three assembly
We're
people.
expecting 3, yes, ma'am.
Yeah, but we only have one that's called in. Okay, thank you.
That's on Ron.
There we go. We got a form now.
So Caleb said we only have one online
Okay.
for now, so. But you'll find that out, I guess, when you do your thing. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order at 6:01 PM. This is a regular assembly meeting for Tuesday, January 6th, 2026. Madam Clerk, will you please take the roll?
I will. Michael Bowles.
Present.
Stephanie Nowers.
Here?
Dee McKee.
Here.
Maxwell Sumner, are you on the phone?
I am present.
Thank you. Bill Gamble.
Here.
Dimitri Ponoff.
Here.
Ron Bernier, are you on the phone?
I am presently on the phone.
Thank you very much. We do have a quorum, Madam Mayor.
All right, thank you. Is there anything any of the members would like to pull from the consent agenda?
Madam Mayor, I want to amend the agenda, but not the consent agenda.
Amend the agenda to what?
He wants to amend the agenda, but not the consent agenda.
Okay. All righty. But there's nothing to the consent? Okay. Are there any other changes to the agenda? So go ahead.
Yes, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I'd like to remove reconsideration of 25-102. I could explain if need be.
Are you moving it to a different place or removing it completely?
From the agenda, Madam
Just
Mayor.
removing the reconsideration from the agenda.
Okay. So do we vote on it or just?
Yeah, you would need to vote on the removal of that ordinance from the agenda, correct, Madam Mayor?
Yeah, okay. All righty. So does everybody understand? The clerk's gonna take, yeah, Assemblyperson Faunop, go ahead.
So that means if he withdraws, we're not going to be able to go back to discussing it? Or what are we actually voting on? So make sure I'm understanding correctly.
Okay. I'll let
Ma-
you-
Madam Mayor, what's on the agenda for reconsideration is ordinance 25-102. What was being up for reconsideration was the referral, not the ordinance itself, but the referral to the plating board. So if Assemblymember Sumner is requesting the removal of that item from the agenda, it's still referred to the plating board.
Yeah, I could explain, Madam Mayor.
I'm sorry, go ahead. What?
I could explain my rationale if you'd like.
I'm sorry, I can't,
He could explain his rationale.
oh, okay. Is there any objection from the assembly for him to address his motion and the reason? Yes, Assembly Bowles, do you have an objection to him explaining it?
No, he wants to
No.
explain.
Madam Mayor, this is up for debate.
Right,
So he can't object to him explaining his motion.
okay. All right. All righty, so go ahead then, Assemblyperson Sumner.
Yeah, this was my confusion. I had asked Mr. Bowles to move this for reconsideration after I found out that the plating board would be hearing it on the 12th of January. So I thought that it was referred for a date definitive. And after talking to Lonnie, the clerk, I thought, we could just have my intent would be to have the staff move it back to the assembly as soon as possible after the referral.
Okay.
So it's unnecessary for it to be reconsidered, essentially.
There he is. There's any further discussion on the motion to, yeah,
So
Assemblyperson
he'll
Faunop.
withdraw it. It's still going to be in front of the commission. And right after that, it comes back to us at the soonest convenience, not specific date, correct?
Go ahead, madam. Clerk?
To Assemblymember Fawnoff, yes, as soon as the plating board's done with it, they can send it back to us. It doesn't have to wait until March. As soon as they get done with their resolution and they give it to us, it can appear on that next agenda.
Is it on the schedule with them currently or not yet?
I do believe Assembly, here comes Mr. Strawn right now to say when it's scheduled in front of the plating board.
Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Alex Strawn, Planning Director. So this is scheduled for public hearing in front of the plating board on the 15th of January. Now, they may take multiple meetings to do it, so it won't necessarily be forwarded right after that meeting. But if they were to finish it on the 15th, we certainly would forward it to the clerks for the next available agenda.
What date did you say?
January 15th is the
Okay, I
public hearing.
thought somebody said January 12th, but is that, so it's on the 15th?
It is on the agenda, yes.
Okay, okay. Is there further
And
discussion? Yeah.
If they make a decision or recommendation on that meeting, in one meeting, what's the soonest Lonnie could have it in front of us by schedules?
Let me look at a calendar. Give me just a second.
I think we have a meeting on the 20th.
We have a meeting February 2nd, oops. I'm just looking at yeah, we could get it on the agenda for the 3rd of February.
Okay, I think that satisfies my answer, yeah.
Assemblyperson Bowles, did you have some discussion?
Yes, so just some clarification. So if this passes and the reconsideration for the referral is removed, can we reconsider the ordinance this evening?
Go ahead.
Through the mayor to Assemblymember Bowles, if it's removed from the agenda right now, as Assemblymember Sumner has requested, no, it's not on the agenda any longer.
So for clarification, if it fails and the referral stays, then we can reconsider the ordinance itself, not just the referral to the plating board. Is that correct?
What you'd be reconsidering it tonight is the referral. I'm going to explain something very quick, Madam Mayor. So what's
Okay.
on the agenda is the referral. That's what the reconsideration is about. So if if it moves forward for reconsideration and the reconsideration passes, what's right in front of you at that point in time would be the referral to the plating board. At that point, you guys could fail that, you could change it, and if you failed that reconsideration tonight, the main motion would be in front of you tonight.
And the main motion would be on the actual ordinance 25-102.
Correct, correct.
Thank you for that clarification.
So to open that again, voting no for what he's asking, correct?
Correct. That's if the assembly fails the removal of this agenda or
Then
this
we-
item from the agenda,
Then we
correct?
can open it later.
It would be open later on, yes.
We can be able to open it. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any further questions?
Yeah, every time I think I understand this and somebody explains it, then I'm confused again. So if I vote no on the reconsideration tonight, on this reconsideration, it just stays where it is with the plating board. Is that correct?
We're at. That is not where we're at right now, Assemblymember McKee. Where we're at is the removal of this item from the agenda. That's what the motion is that Assemblymember Sumner has made. If it's removed from the
Okay.
agenda tonight, it's still referred to the plating board.
I think that's kind of what I was thinking. Yeah. Okay. So if we vote yes, maybe I misstated. So if we vote yes to remove this from the agenda tonight, it just goes on its way to the plating board as if nothing happened.
Correct.
All right. Got it. I think. Mm-hmm.
Anyone else need any further clarification or discussion? Okay, Madam Clerk. Is there is.
Okay, if I can get the members in the room to go ahead and vote. Oops, hold on. Assemblymember Sumner. Assemblymember Sumner, do you have a vote? Thank you. Assemblymember McKee.
Yes.
Assemblymember Bernier.
Yes.
Madam Mayor, it passed with Assemblymember Fawnoff and Bowles opposed.
Okay. Are there any other changes to the agenda? Assemblyperson Bowles?
Yes, so for the consent agenda, I would like to pull a couple of items. 26-001 and 26-002, mainly for points of clarification. If we could maybe bring those I guess to right after audience participation, if possible, after section C, before the consent
I
agenda.
can get some clarification, Madam Mayor.
Sure.
So are you pulling them from the consent agenda to speak about separately, or are you wanting to move them on the agenda?
I'd like to pull them so that we can discuss them.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. So basically, they would happen right after the consent, the rest of the consent agenda, then we'd take each one of them separately.
That works as well.
Okay.
Further discussion on any changes to the agenda? Is someone trying to say something online? No. Oh, somebody needs to be put on mute, I guess, on the, there we go. No? Okay. Okay, so further motions, anything? Nothing? Okay. Hearing no more, then the agenda has been approved. Yeah.
Sorry, but I gotta ask this. Can we ask Ms. McKee to please move, because it is really, in the audience, Ms. McKee, it makes a lot of noise here. So I don't know if Ilani can give instructions, because it will be distraction throughout the meeting. I would really ask that we make that request to her.
Assemblymember McKee, if you could hit *2 to mute your phone, or if you're on your cell phone, you can just hit mute.
Okay, well, I'm on my cell phone, but if I hit *2, I'm going to mute.
Thank you.
What do you think? Where everybody's on? I think the wind's maybe gotten to all of us. I don't know, and it's not even blowing tonight. So you will all stand, please, for. Caleb, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. It's not on your agenda, but I do have a proclamation for America's 250th birthday that I would like to read. And then there's nobody here to accept it except all of you, because if you're like me, you're happy that we live in the United States of America and that we have 250 years of celebration. So happy birthday, United States. Whereas the year 2026 marks the 250th anniversary of the founding of the United States of America, in the signing of the Declaration of Independence, a moment to honor the freedom and values upon which our nation was built. Whereas the historical milestone provides an opportunity to reflect on our shared history and to recognize those who shaped our country and look towards our future. Whereas the America 250th essay competition, which this part I'm going to read has already been sent to the school districts several months ago. They had an essay all over the United States for students to become involved, and they then are in the process of judging those essays, and students and their teachers will be able to pick out, I think, 5 different locations that they want to visit this next year. And but as far as I know, they haven't announced those winners yet. And the next part is also on the educators. We did ask the school district to encourage their staff and the teachers and instructors to be sure that as much as they possibly can, I guess, have them put in their curriculum, in their classrooms, an acknowledgement of what a milestone this is. And so educators play a vital role in encouraging students' participation and fostering civil awareness and understanding of our democracy, which I think we all know as a public, but that's beside the point. But if I, Edna DeVries, Mayor of the Mat-Su Borough, do here recognize the 250th anniversary of the United States of America. And today, Mike and I were talking about some different things regarding how we could be just to remind people to celebrate what we have been gifted. And so you'll see some different things. We're not spending taxpayers' money or doing any big hurrah thing, but there will be a number of things that, like say for when we do our cleanup, to make America, to instead of just make Matanuska Valley beautiful, it will be to make America beautiful. So there'll be some things like that. And if you have some ideas, they do have online some volunteer where you can go in and put in the hours that you volunteer to continue to make America great. And I see president tonight here from one of the community councils. I don't even know how many hours he probably puts in to be able to go online and put in. So there would, and I know a lot of the rest of you do too. So just want to thank you for that. And then we do have an award for one of the, but he's not here yet. So
He is here. He is here.
oh, he is here. Okay. Oh, okay. All right. So I'll come down. And then I think we'd like to have, if the assembly will all sort of come behind and stand, Robinson would like to have a picture where all of you would be in. So if you all want to come over for it. I normally sit.
We can't get to all of the picture when you're scattered out.
You need to turn on the mic. You need to press the button and turn on the mic.
Thank you. My name is Tom Robertson, and I have an award for the Lifeguard of the Year. Cameron Gossett here. I'd like the mayor to present that to him, please. Come on up. We're going to get a picture of you.
Is he the one getting it? Then why don't we put him in the middle and we put you next to him? Then we'll surround the two assembly on each side.
Yeah, so we'll have a director.
Yeah. Okay, you ready? Here we go. Good, so no blinks. One. Okay, it's good, okay.
Yeah. Please. If I can operate this. We're looking good. I think we got some. For those that you don't know, Cameron here is a lifeguard here at the Palmer Pool. He's always working and helping people. He does things above and beyond call. I mean, even in the morning, we'll go out, he'll have the sidewalks plowed and sanded, shoveled, I mean, and he's always cleaning. He's an outstanding employee. This is the kind of employees we want to keep in the borough, and we can't thank you enough. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I
And then
appreciate it.
now here comes his parents.
Oh. Can we get a picture of you up here? Come on. Come on, we got to get mom and dad in here.
Yeah.
Ready, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, now look at me.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. He lives up in Cedar Hill. Yeah.
You guys talking about my neighborhood?
Is that right? That's where Roger, his dad, works. I mean, lives. He works at Job Corps.
Okay. Got a little believe you guys were seeing something.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your cooperation.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that to our attention. So we're back to the regular agenda now. We'll see how long we can stay there, I guess, for tonight. Anyway, we do have some Assembly regular meeting minutes from the 2nd of December of 2025. Are there any changes to those minutes that been presented? Okay, hearing none, then the minutes are approved as presented. The next things we have is agency report from the cities. I don't see anybody here. I don't see anybody from the school district. And I don't see anybody, I don't see Todd from the state. And do we have a report from any of the joint? Okay. Does anybody, anyone of the assembly have any public relations reports that they would like to speak to? Okay, don't hear anything. And here we go. City Manager, Mr. Brown, you have a report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm going to invite Dave
Reports.
Griffin, our Port Director, to start moving forward. So I thought we would have a relatively light meeting agenda tonight. Maybe that's not true. But we loaded 3 updates for you. One was requested by an Assembly member, but thought we would give you a touch point with Port Director on a few Port McKenzie updates, talk a little bit about libraries, and then Mr. Adams will come up and talk about some of our TIP projects with a highlighter emphasis on Texile extension, just to kind of bring you up to speed with some developments or progress there. So with that said, Dave, the floor is yours.
And the clicker is down there.
Okay, good evening.
Good
Hi,
evening.
Madam Mayor, members of the Assembly. I'm David Griffin, Port Director, Port McKenzie. And I'm here tonight to wish everybody Happy New Year, 2026, and talk about Port McKenzie for a couple minutes. Let's see here, backing up. So I've got about 8 slides, and one of the things I want to talk about tonight is not just the port, but also the Point McKenzie region, kind of this greater area that Port McKenzie's in many ways is an anchor for future development, transportation infrastructure development, business, and just growth in the Point McKenzie region in the West Susitna. So I've got a map to show that, but here we are a couple of miles from Anchorage. One of the things that's great about our port is our location. We're geographically, strategically located. And what I mean by that is we've got deep water, we've got fairly calm water. Yeah, we've got the tides. Yes, we have the ice. But it's nice being 2 miles from Anchorage because we can take advantage of the maritime industry there, such as the tugboats, spill response, Coast Guard, things of that nature. Some of the differences between Port McKenzie and the Port of Anchorage is Anchorage brings in a lot of stuff that's used in Anchorage and other places on the road system, but 70% of the cargo that's brought into Anchorage stays in Anchorage or goes south. And so Anchorage brings in a lot of the sort of the packaged goods, the big box store commodities, grocery stores, Costco, Lowe's, Home Depot, those types of things. Lots of fuel for the airport, especially. Some cement. They do a little bit of cruise ships. But they're about to move into their Port of Alaska modernization projects. And they're going to be under construction. It's estimated for the next 8 to 10 years. And so what we're seeing is some interest starting to form and coming over to the Port McKenzie side. which is great. In particular, I'll talk about this in a second in a little bit more detail, is Crowley Fuels. Crowley Fuels wants to build a 20 million gallon bulk fuel storage facility at the port, which would require the construction of a fuel terminal, fuel transmission lines up to the bluff. So we're really excited about that for a number of reasons. I think it's going to drive a variety of different businesses, but ports need fuel. Most ports have fuel storage, and I think this could be a big turning point for Port McKenzie. We didn't have any large bulk carriers or big ships at the port in 2025. We had a lot of barges. It was a very busy year for barging. We had Paradigm out of Kodiak started using the port. They were great, professional, safe, and they helped facilitate a lot of the activity that was taking place during the Arctic Edge 2025 exercise. Here we've got a barge from Cruise Construction. Cruise has been one of our longest operators at the port. They do a lot of project support and construction projects in Western Alaska. In fact, I think Port McKenzie probably received seasonally one of the latest calls for barges this year, because Cruise actually stayed out in Western Alaska to help with the typhoon Halong that took place out there. So we actually had barges post Thanksgiving this year, which is pretty rare, but it was successful. Western Construction's also been using Port McKenzie quite a bit for projects, which we've been excited about. And over the last 3 years, we've had roughly 9 new barge companies starting to use Port McKenzie, which is great, because that just demonstrates that our port is capable, and word spreads. Hey, why aren't you guys using Port McKenzie? They're easy to work with, they're affordable, and so we've been getting a lot more attention in terms of barging. Here's just some shots from Arctic Edge. We had Army Reserve Transportation Battalion out of North Carolina that basically set up camp at the port for about 5 weeks, had 180 personnel living out there. We also had Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Coast Guard. It was busy 5 weeks. This was sort of our highlight of the year. Big operation, went very successful. And the purpose of this was not so much a military operation for defense measures, but more for disaster relief. And so in the event that something just happened to, some catastrophe happened to either the Port of Alaska in Anchorage or one of the bridges or the highway, and we needed lighter freight over to the west side, they wanted to make sure that that could be done, and it was successful. There were no issues on our side. And then we also held a couple of open houses out at the port. These were a big success. We had a legislators open house. We had over 20 legislators come out there and take a tour and get educated on Port McKenzie and the Point McKenzie region, all the projects we have going on. And when I talk about projects going on, I'm talking about projects here in the valley that are very consequential. West Susitna Access Road, AKLNG, the rail extension project, upgrades to KGB. So there's a lot of movement out in this area. And so it was a great opportunity to get the public out here, show them the port, let them walk around. We took them out onto the dock, and they got to see the port up close and personal. Very successful. Really appreciate those of you that were able to make it out there, because we had a big turnout. I think, Corinne, what were we looking at roughly? We were guesstimating maybe 40 people would show up, and I think the numbers were close to 200. So, and this is something I think we're going to try to do at least once a year, is open up the port and get folks out there. So,
yeah, and the one thing was the fact of how close we were to Anchorage. I think that was the major revelation so many of the people realized.
Yeah, it is seeing is believing. You get out there. I mean, here we're looking at a map, right? Mm-hmm. And we are literally 2 miles away by water. So when I check the weather for Port McKenzie, I usually check Anchorage weather, because that's how close we are. Mm-hmm. This map is, I like this map because it gives you a general sense of not only where we're located on the water, but the port district. So Port McKenzie is part of a special use district. There's roughly 8,000 acres of uplands and about 1,000 acres of tide and submerged lands. What excites me, and I'm a little bit of a geek when it comes to land, is the fact that the borough, we have roughly 1,000 acres of tide and submerged lands, almost 2 miles of shoreline in a channel that does not have to get dredged, which is pretty exciting. So when we talk about Port McKenzie, we've really just sort of started scratching the surface of possibilities out there. In this image too, you'll see there's electrical transmission lines, there's the Kinnick Arm Bridge right-of-way, there's Point McKenzie Road, there's the Port McKenzie Rail Extension, because of this potential transportation infrastructure and the electrical transmission lines, Port McKenzie's been, and the land that we have received a lot of attention from a variety of different industry. Most notably, we recently signed a permit with Terra Energy Systems. They're looking at everything from AI data centers, sort of a green tech campus out here, development of new transmission lines from their coal play out in West Susitna, because their Terra Energy Systems is associated with Flatlands Energy. It's a big coal lease on state land. It's not too far from the West Susitna Access Road. So they're very interested in the port. We've also got the State of Alaska Department of Transportation's interested in the port for producing sustainable aviation fuel, which is pretty exciting. And of course, Ada, who has a vested interest in a variety of different resource projects in the state, most notably Ambler. They're very interested out here as well in trying to make sure that they have a flag in the ground. So we're pretty excited about that. And then, this map here kind of shows the West Susitna Access Road and the mining claims up in the mountains. So the port is roughly 100 miles from these mineral claims. There's no federal land out here, which is a blessing in many ways. Most of the land out here is state-owned, but there is quite a bit of private. It's hard to see on this map, but there's quite a bit of private. And then there's a little bit of borough and then some native land as well. The West Susitna Access Road, where it takes off West Susitna Parkway, it's the new alignment. That first 22 miles, that portion of the project, at least the permitting and design and engineering, is being handled by the State Department of Transportation. And that remaining 78 miles, once you're on the west side of the Susitna, is handled by Ada. So they do have a lot of information on this on their websites. What's interesting is that within that first 22 miles between West Susitna Parkway and the Big Sioux is the borough's Fish Creek Management Area. We have about 13,000 acres of land there. Right. And so it's very good land. There's actually a plan for this land, and it's got good soils and good timber on it. So I think that once that road goes in, we're going to see some movement on those properties. And then that red line is the Port McKenzie Rail Extension, where it connects from Houston down to the port. That's 32 miles, the length of that extension. Of the 32 miles, we've got 25 miles of rail bed constructed. Of the 7 bridges, 6 bridges are in. And so this project is it's beyond shovel ready. It's half completed. And a big portion of this project too is just the acquisition of the right-of-way and all the permitting that comes along with the project of this scope and magnitude. So we're excited about this. There's momentum within the state to complete this project, especially when we're talking about the Alaska, the LNG line coming down from the North Slope. Any sort of support for the North Slope, Port McKenzie could help facilitate that, especially once that rail is completed. So we're pretty excited about that. And I love this photo. Stefan took this photo, and it's wherever Stefan's at. I saw him in here earlier, but I love this photo because it shows we have 3 berths, the deep draft dock, the barge dock, the barge bow ramp berth, and all 3 of them are occupied simultaneously from different operators, all working harmoniously together. And that big pile of white stuff is salt from Mexico as part of Jim Baxter's company, Northern Gravel and Trucking's statewide DOT winter road maintenance contract. So Crowley. So Crowley Fuels, I think we're all aware of who they are. They are a big player here in Alaska with moving fuel, transporting fuel all over the place. They approached us this summer in June and said, hey, Dave, we'd like to come out to the port and look around. We're considering a bulk fuel storage facility at Port McKenzie. And yeah, so we brought them out, we walked them, spent about 4 hours with them out there. They liked what they saw. They submitted an application for a permit. We signed that permit, actually got signed yesterday after, getting through the holidays and some negotiations. And what that permit is going to do, it's going to provide them a time frame to do due diligence and actually figure out where they would want to be within the port districts. And they're looking at approximately 20 to 30 acres, maybe even up to 40 acres, so they would have room to expand if needed. And so we're very excited about that. So you'll hear more of that in the coming months or so, but at present, they're looking at having a final investment decision figured out by fall of 26. Once that occurs, then it's game on. We would be moving into a construction phase and likely could have fuel being brought in by tanker sometime in 2027. So what's exciting about that, not to get too much into the weeds, but they're talking about the potential of moving 200 million gallons of fuel through the port annually. At 1 cent a gallon, that's that's the current price in our tariff. At 1 cent a gallon, that's $2 million just in wharfage moving fuel across the dock. Doesn't include the tankers coming and the dockage associated with that, or the land lease fees up top. So, and I've already heard through the grapevine that once that fuel terminal goes in, other fuel companies would be interested in establishing a presence out at the port as well. So we'll see where this goes. But that's pretty exciting.
Yes, it is.
So I'll go ahead and kind of wrap up here, but I did want to just let you guys know we really appreciate all the support. We have a very dedicated team. Corrine Linfor, she's my assistant, and Greg Snell, he's our operations and maintenance staff out at the port. And I feel very grateful to have such a good dedicated team, and also appreciate all the support from the assembly members. And we are trying to branch out into social media a little bit. We started putting in some photos and some updates on our Facebook page, and so you might start seeing a little bit more chatter out on the internet, social media and stuff like that. We also got invited to come up to Fairbanks and give a presentation to the Fairbanks Chamber of Commerce. So I'm going to be heading up there in about 10 days. And what's exciting about that is, I think Fairbanks, the interior, is realizing that Port McKenzie is also their port. And that's a message that we really want to convey to everybody, business interests, elected officials, anyone that is in the natural resource development world, that Port McKenzie is also their port. So I think they're eager to learn more about what we have to offer. So, and with that, do you have any questions or comments? I'm happy to answer any questions.
I just want to say thank you, because for a couple years that I've been here, it's really starting to get traction. We're starting getting more attention. I hear there's a conversation about port and things like that. And I think you and your team did phenomenal work. You're always available there. Several times I've been next to you where you have people calling you and you're right away answering those questions, how they can meet and what potential there is. I think you're taking all the calls seriously, and I want to say we appreciate that. I think at one point we'll start rapidly seeing a lot of cool things happening there, and something's already happening. But I do want to say all that work that you put in, you have our support, at least mine personally here on this board, but most of the body, I think, and keep doing that.
Through the mayor, thank you, Assemblymember Fonoff. I could keep talking because there's a lot to talk about, and I know Mike knows this very well, because I can be a chatterbox when it comes to the port. But we are moving in the right direction. Within the last 4 years, we've won about $20 million in grants, federal grants. The most recent one was a FEMA port security grant. So we're going to be updating some of our security infrastructure out at the port. We also won the build grant for our barge haul out facility. That project's already been designed, engineered, permitted. But with federal dollars, there's always an additional process. So we're in the midst of going through the NEPA process at the moment, which may delay the construction. We were hoping to try to get the bids out and maybe start construction in 26, but you know, who knows? It might end up having to take place in 2027. But we're excited about that. We're continuing to chase grant opportunities, and we currently have a couple of grant applications in. One is for some equipment. We need a loader, forklift, skid steer out there. And then we're also, the pile sleeve project, we weren't able, with the funds we had at the time, we weren't able to get all the piles wrapped with sleeves. So we're looking for some additional money for that. And then dry storage. We keep hearing you guys need some dry storage out there. We do have 2 warehouses on site in the Port District. Both of those are currently under a permit with Quality Asphalt and Paving. They store bulk cement in those warehouses. But the addition of some new warehousing, some lay down space, some things of that nature, I think is going to help us business-wise as well. So we're chasing some grant opportunities for that as well. So, yeah.
Assembly person hours, did you have comment?
Thank you. I'm laughing because the screen says AI generated content. A large body of water with boats and a dock. So that's their description of Point McKenzie, but
That's funny.
yeah, anyways, thank you to you and Corinne for all the work that you have been doing to market and bring business to the port. It's been a long time dream of people in the valley to have that be a revenue producer. I am curious about Crowley. What would be involved in putting in a fuel terminal and the other infrastructure? And would that be something that would fall on our dime or be a shared or TBD?
No, that's a great, through the mayor, Assemblymember Nowers, that's a great question. We met with Crowley right before the Christmas holidays and kind of hashed out what that might look like. I don't think we're, as the borough, really willing to step up and try to invest additional money into the port right now because it's pretty significant. I mean, we're talking $20 to $30 million. Crowley's happy to build it. They're happy to put in, do all the design, engineering, permitting, actually build the terminal, build the fuel lines, and operate it non-exclusively. So it would benefit them to have their own infrastructure out there, because right now they're having, most ports that they're operating in, they're actually having to rent infrastructure. So the thought of them actually owning it makes them happy. But they could also rent or lease that same infrastructure and make their investment dollars back. So, but when they first came to us, they had kind of considered maybe a partnership or a scenario where they invest in the infrastructure and then maybe we discount tariff rates, wharfage, dockage, and things of that nature. But I think allowing them to go in under a long-term lease agreement, obviously it'll have to be a very thorough, thought-out lease agreement. But having them go in and get this going will happen much quicker if they use their own dollars than us trying to figure out either grant funds or using public funds. So,
Okay, thank you. You kind of covered the things I was thinking about, so appreciate it.
yeah. All
Any
right.
further questions? Anybody online? Okay, alrighty.
Just want to say thank you, Dave. You're doing a great job.
Appreciate that. Thank you. All right.
Thank you.
We'll see you guys around.
Alrighty.
I guess I'll open quickly and say this was at a request of an assembly member to come and give a libraries update, kind of talk about what's changed over the past couple of years, some of the things we've done from a policy perspective, and Ms. Morrissey as the Community Development Director is in the best position to communicate that. So the floor is yours.
Okay, sounds great. Good evening, Madam Mayor, Assembly members, members of the public, Manager Brown. For the record, I'm Jillian Morrissey, Community Development Director, and it's my privilege to provide you tonight a Borough Library update. And I want to thank Assembly Member Bowles for requesting this. I've been looking forward to providing this update since the request was made. Mat-Su residents and the Assembly have had a 50-year history of supporting our borough community libraries. And I wanted to start with a high-level overview. We have 5 borough libraries, and I'm going to go through each one of the community libraries here. First is Big Lake. That serves one of our larger communities outside of the Corey area. Last census had about 3,200 individuals that live there year-round. We also have a library in Sutton, and this is one of our newer facilities. This serves about 1,000 community members. We also have another library facility in Talkeetna, again, a newer facility, also serves about 1,000. That does swell in the summertime because of tourism and temporary residents that move there for the tourism industry. Trapper Creek is our smallest library that serves about 500 people in the Trapper Creek community, and is also much smaller than most of our other facilities. Lastly, we have our Willow Library, which is also a newer facility and is adjacent to the Willow Community Center. It is also the home of the Iditarod Start, and that serves about 1,300 people. So in these remote communities, our libraries and are truly focal points of our borough services, and they really serve much more than just library collection development. They are truly community resource hubs, as you can see in the Talkeetna picture here on the screen, and in the presentation right under Talkeetna Public Library, it says Community Resource Center. These are vibrant community centers that have not only books and DVDs for people to be able to check out, but also serve as services and programs and other things. I wanted to note that the city of Wasilla and the city of Palmer also have libraries in the borough, but those are actually run by those respective cities. And though we collaborate with those libraries, they are not borough-run libraries. Excellent. So the next slide, I wanted to talk a little bit more about community hubs, services, and programs, just do that high-level overview. So services that our libraries provide, we are part of the Alaska Joint Library Network and the Alaska Library Catalog. Many people know that as interlibrary loan. That's usually how most people speak of it. This expands our collections at our 5 borough libraries and offers our residents to be able to access library collection development material from Ketchikan to Bethel, from Valdez to Kodiak, all over the state of Alaska. We also have meeting room space at our libraries, and they differ in size depending on the community, but those are very well-used meeting spaces for our community members. Those are offered free as part of a community service, and we see knitting clubs, homeschool programs, those community program rooms are filled most of the time that the resource centers and libraries are open. One of the other services that we provide these local communities are internet connectivity. We have Wi-Fi at all of our 5 borough libraries, but we also have borough-owned computers that our residents and visitors alike can also use. As far as programs go, we have all age programming at all of our 5 borough libraries, and they serve seniors and infants and teens and families. And we have programs that are after-school programs for young people, and also during summer break, also even during our winter breaks and spring break as well. They also act as nutrition distribution centers for some of our nonprofit partners like Kids Cupboard during the summers. We also offer workshops. As a matter of fact, we're about just to roll out a new workshop for community members that are interested in learning more about AI and how to access those services and what that looks like, and just tips and tricks in order to help support community members as their digital literacy is growing. We have 2 advisory boards at the assembly level that serve our libraries. We have the library board, and we also have what was formed in the 2024, the Library Citizen Advisory Committee. Additionally, each library has a Friends of the Library group. These are separate 501c3 groups but their focus is on the borough library that they serve, and they provide not only financial support through grant making typically, but also through volunteer services for some of our programs. I can give you a really good example. If you look on the picture here on the slide at the bottom right, you see people on a gravel path. That's the Story Walk that's at the Sutton Library. That was funded through a grant that the Friends of the Sutton Library procured, and then this was put in by Borough Community Development staff. And Sutton Library, another example of the volunteer services just during the Christmas season. It's the Friends of the Library group that comes in and helps support and provide cocoa to the families, and also set up Christmas trees and other things. So. Next slide, I wanted to provide you some of the milestones that we've had over the past between 24 and 25. And I want to draw your attention to the first dot all the way to the left on April 2nd. And we're going to begin here. So back in April of 2024, the Assembly unanimously voted to create the Library Citizen Advisory Committee. So I was actually hired about 2 days after that in order to help support the inauguration of that Library Citizen Advisory Committee. By May 8th, after a month after that vote had passed, we had an online dashboard for all of the public to view to see library materials submitted for reconsideration. That dashboard is still live today. You can go there right now and look that up. We also updated the library collection development policy that month in order to reflect the changes and beginning the Library Citizen Advisory Committee. By July 8th, we had our first LCAC meeting, and because this was a newly formed group, they needed just the opportunity to be able to meet for the first time and talk about what the work was that they were going to do. They also chose the first book that they were going to review. By August 12th, they had their first meeting with an advisory vote. By September 9th, they had their second meeting, and I also was able to provide the first final decision. That falls on the Community Development Director to take the advisory vote and consider all the other pieces and provide an administrative decision on what to do with these advisory votes. I'd like to note that any of the Library Citizen Advisory agendas, meeting minutes, archived videos, and final decisions are all available online at any time for any members of the public or the Assembly. You can just go to matsu.gov, and to make it really easy, just go to the search bar and type in Library Citizens, and it will come right up, and then you can go to the page and look back in time as much as you like, or look at any of the materials that were reviewed. I'm going to go to the next page here. And I wanted to draw your attention to the April 8th timeline. We heard from the Library Citizen Advisory Committee when they were doing their advisory votes that many of the LCAC members had a lot of concerns about safeguarding children and protecting children. So one of the things that we realized as a department that we hadn't done is go out to parents and guardians of children that have library cards or access our libraries and ask how parents felt about our libraries, not only collection development, but also programs and services. By May 8th, about a month later, we closed the survey and had the survey results, and we provided that report to the library board in order to be able to give that information. Those results were also provided again to the Assembly and to the members of the public through the manager's weekly report. I believe that was about 2 weeks ago. I'm going to go to the next slide. As the LCAC continue to do their work, and likewise for the library board, I want to draw your attention to the August 11th date. The LCAC members at that meeting, when they were looking at doing their review that day, they decided that they no longer wanted to review materials that were in the adult collection. So the motion was passed, and they all agreed that at that point, that any materials that were in the library materials reconsideration queue if they were in the adult collection, that they were no longer going to review those materials. The next day, the library board met, and this was a new process was being introduced to the library board, where now they were going to be doing pre-screening of materials that library staff were considering purchasing for their respective libraries. So on August 12th, we did a practice run with our library board, so they had the opportunity to see what the new process would look like, how the materials would come to them, have a chance to review materials, and then provide an advisory vote. At the September 9th meeting was the first time that they did that process to fidelity, and we had the batched materials, so about 500 books and DVDs were brought forward. The library board had a chance to review them before their meeting, and then they had the chance to flag any materials that they wanted to do a further review. In October 13th, we heard loud and clear, especially from Assembly Member McKee, that she was very interested in having email notification whenever a child checked out library materials. So we worked hard to figure out a way in order to do this within the clunky software system that we were working in, that we use from the Alaska Library Catalog. But we were able to figure out a system, and we provided a new opt-in email notification for any parent or guardian that wanted to receive notification about what the material is that any of the minors had checked out. At this time, we have about 2 families that have opted into this service, and that service is still available. The only thing that we request is that parents or guardians come to the library, check in with their the librarian or the staff that is there, and then we need to verify their email address so that we know that the parent or guardian is actually going to receive that email notification. And then from that point, if there's a child who's going to be checking out material, that parent will then receive an email notification. On the next slide, I want to draw your attention to December 8th. This was a meeting that just happened last month, and the LCAC did have a quorum, and they brought forward a resolution to recommend to all of you that the Assembly sunsets the LCAC early. With that being said, the addition to that was that the task of reviewing library material for reconsideration would go to the library board. We provided that resolution in your last agenda packet from the December 16th meeting. I'm going to pause there just to see if any members of the Assembly have any questions on the timeline. Okay. Excellent. So I just wanted to review some of the 2024-2025 highlights, and I couldn't help myself. I had to put a picture of that moose in at Trapper Creek Library, how fun that is. I feel like that's one of the unique things that would happen only here in Alaska. And that's right outside the librarian's window there at Trapper Creek. We had over 100,000 visits at our borough libraries in 2025. And when I was speaking before about the 5 borough libraries, when you hear how small those communities are, that shows you how robust these community resource hubs really are, and how many of our community members are utilizing and connecting to those services and programs. The LCAC reviewed 8 titles, and 8 final decisions were also provided. The library board has reviewed over 2,000 titles before the borough libraries have been purchasing these. Only 5 at this time have been flagged by library board members. Currently, the materials for reconsideration queue has only material in the adult collection. And we also were able to provide notification of minors checked out material, and that service is still provided to any parents or guardians. For 2026, we have strategic goals, and we are excited to keep working on these. We are going to continue doing the library collection development procedure that we have in place. We're very excited that the library board is doing the pre-screening review of our library collection material. It really adds community voice into the process. It also is helping us with our procurement process of how we buy materials and make sure that we're doing it as efficiently as possible. We are excited to continue that process. We're also looking at library shelving layout reviews. So one of the things that we heard is some of our LCAC members were interested in physical safeguards inside of our libraries. And so one of the things that we're looking at is there a way that we could redesign the stacks or the shelving of how our materials are laid out to see if there's a better way that would feel more palatable to some of our parents or guardians and patrons. We're also looking at a marketing campaign to promote our programs and services. Sometimes we can put the word out on Facebook or put flyers at the post office, but we always can continue to work to let people know all the great programs and services that are available through our borough libraries. One of the things that people don't even know, we even have some tool checkout at our libraries. And so if you're someone who is doing kind of the homesteading life or just needs help with those things, sometimes our libraries have that tool and you can even check that out. We're also looking at doing a comprehensive library page refresh. So as you all know, the Mat-Su Borough just launched their new web pages, matsu.gov. Our borough library pages are still on hub sites. I'm not going to bore you with all the details of how web pages are set up inside the borough, but we will be migrating those hub sites into the new format and system. It helps with accessibility. It also just helps streamline the process a little bit as our patrons try to look for those programs and services. And so I just had a conversation with our IT director, and that's a priority for that group, the website development team. And so we will be looking forward to rolling that out in the next 3 months or so. And I'll leave it to any questions that you all may have.
Yes, Assemblyperson Bowles?
So thank you very much for that thorough and outstanding presentation. I really appreciate it. And thank you for the work that you and all of our libraries and librarians do. It really is an outstanding resource for the borough. I do have a couple of questions, and they're more follow-up related. Most of the information, most of the questions I had from my fellow residents in District 1 were answered here, but I do have a couple of follow-up questions, mainly concerning, so you've addressed the LCAC, and I know that I spoke to you about that. We're going to be working on an ordinance to move forward with that. And there's things in place that are there's going to be safeguards in place. Some of the concerns that were brought to my attention were kind of the blending of borough resources and this 501c resource, the Friends of the whatever library. Just this last week, I got a phone call from a resident that wanted to sit in on the library board meeting, and they ended up, I guess, at the Friends of the Sutton Library meeting, and they were confused. And so it seems like there's a confusion that the Friends of the Sutton Library is part of the actual borough library when there really is there's no connection there other than it's a private civilian or nonprofit or not-for-profit organization that's there trying to assist with the library operations. So one of my thoughts are borough taxpayer money, our property taxes, our non-area-wide property taxes fund the libraries, yet the Friends of the Library organizations are able to go in there and not necessarily do what they want, but have some semblance of control over these libraries because they bring funds in. And so I think that there is a thought that there should be more separation. For example, on the borough website, I'm looking at Sutton right now, you can see that the Friends of the Sutton Library, they have access. There's information to that organization, and it kind of seems like it's part of the borough. So I think that, and my colleagues may disagree, but I think there should be some separation there. I know that these friends groups have their own social media. They're funded by themselves. They can create their own websites. They're in their communities. They can spread the word of mouth. But actually, kind of bringing them under the borough makes it seem like that it's an arm of the borough when it's really not. So that is one thing that, if possible, and I think it is possible, I think there should be some separation there. Also, as far as jurisdiction, or I think like that, I was a previous investigator. When these organizations, these non-borough organizations are in the libraries, who's there controlling them? And the reason I ask is there was an incident where a person was promoting, telling adolescents to bypass their parents and read banned books. And this person was not a borough employee, not associated with the borough at all, but they're a member of this friends group. And so that was of concern by some residents, that this person was posting on social media, read banned books, and it was targeting adolescents. And so there's some concern there as well. So it has nothing to do with the borough. The borough staff are outstanding. They do an outstanding job. The librarians do an outstanding job. It's more the concern of the separation and having a fine, clear line of the separation so people understand that if they're trying to attend a library board meeting, it's very clear that that's what they're attending, and then that's the borough versus going to a link on the borough website and ending up in a Friends of the Sutton Library meeting. So is that something that is being pursued? Is that something that's of concern in maybe any other district? So that was really the only thing that I think wasn't covered in this report. So thank you.
Through the mayor to Assemblymember Bowles, thank you for your comments. I think one of the things that when we do the comprehensive webpage refresh, I think some of your concerns are going to be addressed because there's going to be similarity of each borough library's pages. Not only, like I said, does that help with accessibility and other things, but also helps patrons steer them in the right direction so that they understand there are official borough advisory boards that support that, and we can direct them more efficiently in that to those pages for the library board and library citizen advisory committee. I'm looking forward to doing that website refresh so that it's more clear, and I think can address some of what you're mentioning as blurred lines.
Thank you.
Yes.
Further questions? Anybody? Assemblyperson Fauna, go ahead.
Yeah, Mike, I'll support you and make sure that there's a clear separation of the other groups versus the borough side of things. So yeah, I think that should be very clear so that people are not confused. I'm questioning, it sounds like you've shared, there's a lot more things than just the books but some books we really had heated debates or, disagreements about. So my question is, do you know annually what is Matsu Borough spending on the actual book side of things? Not the stuff, but approximately, I guess.
Through the mayor to Assemblymember Fonoff, I cannot give you that number off the top of my head. What I can tell you is that I've met with our finance team to talk about what library collection development would cost a taxpayer at, let's say, if you had a property value about $300,000 and it's less than a penny.
For what?
That a taxpayer is paying into in order to do library collection development.
Well, that kind of doesn't answer the question. I want to know what the amount, if it's 100,000?
And I can provide that.
Yeah,
Sorry.
good.
Yeah, I was gonna say, we could follow up in
Okay.
tomorrow's weekly post with that number. We just need to go back and be able to check
Okay.
the budget.
I'm glad to know that there's some direction that as technology changes, there's some focus going to be towards AI and internet, obviously, and the computers. That's something that is very much needed. When we're talking about reshuffling, that did make sense too. I think that could address a lot of concerns on the shelving side part of things. But if these buildings are being used for many, many different things that you've mentioned, if we had less books or no books in there, but we still have all the other options in there. Would that give an opportunity for these buildings to be even used more versatilely? And how, if we are slowly transitioning to more digital side of things, how can we start having that conversation, or where do we take steps to start, keeping up with the reality of, the new way of people using phones and computers and things like that. So I'm trying to think if there is any thoughts about transitioning from the print stuff or minimizing that to using all the other resources, which we seem like we're already starting to do, whether it's the computers or the AI and all that. Is there any thoughts on that?
Through the mayor to Assembly Member Fonoff, thank you for your comments. What I can share with you is that our library collection is still pretty vibrant. People are still accessing paper books or DVD material. Very frequently, we have that checkout rate. So we do know that that is still an important service in those communities. And to your point, we also see very robust ebook rate also that being utilized. There are even small devices at some of the libraries where it's you don't even need a phone or a computer. It's just a device that has an audiobook. So people are accessing the collection through multiple modalities, and we know that all of those are being accessed by our patrons currently.
Correct. And so with that same thought, that same piece of technology, tablet like a book that a lot of people use on airplanes and things like that, wouldn't that eliminate so much the paper side of things? And I know it's uncomfortable change at first, but I mean, before people thought, you couldn't travel without a boarding pass. Now people use the phones, and that technology we can say over and over. When the people started getting paper mail on certain things, and they started getting the e-statements for whatever it is, world didn't really collapse. So I'm saying I'd like to see the assembly starting to maybe take the position and say that we should keep up with innovation and use technology that will be, instead of buying a book for so many libraries, if that same tablet can now on the instant download or whatever could be utilized same thing as a book, maybe it's worth investing into that technology instead of just and I know it's uncomfortable change, and some people, who are really used to that, I think will, have a fit about it. But the reality is, there's how we consume things are shifting, and I would like to have Assembly consider join me in that way of thinking, so that we could start phasing out the paper side of things and go using the technology that's available to us more.
Any other questions? Probably questions.
Say thank you for the presentation. And it's, if we looked at one resource that our community is using to a great extent, it's libraries. And it's one of the few things that is still free, and it's open to all. And it's an amazing service that our libraries provide. As far as transitioning to all electronic or partially electronic, I mean, if I saw that the demand for books was declining, or if I thought that more screen time was good for our kids, as opposed to books, I think parents go there because there are books. And I guess, like Mark Twain said, the reports of my death have been greatly exaggerated. The library's predicted death was, from when the internet came along. And actually what's happened is that people have increased their demand for the printed copy. So I would urge rethinking. And if we move that way at all, if we see a decrease in demand for books, then sure, maybe, like people with their boarding passes, that's a good example. People moved, but they're not moving. They're using the books, and they're looking at them, and they're checking them out. So I think that's an important resource we need to protect in the borough. And I just am amazed by the use of libraries that continues to exist today. So thanks for the report.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I think that's it then, ladies. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm going to invite Mr. Adams up, Public Works Director, we are getting there. This is the last update, so we'll work through this.
IQ to be quick. So, good evening, Madam Mayor, Manager, Member Assembly. Happy New Year. As Mike said, I am Tom Adams, Public Works Director. So, I'm going to fly through this presentation as quickly as possible, but I also invite you to stop and ask me questions where things might interest you. It is a presentation on our transportation infrastructure program, but there's going to be an emphasis tonight on our right-of-way acquisition process, and there's a purpose for that because we have a number of our projects that are reaching the phase where right-of-way acquisition is important, and they have substantial right-of-way acquisition needs, which comes at a cost, not only from the point of resourcing to go through the process, but also in the actual land acquisition. So we'll talk about that a little bit tonight. Which button is it, Lonnie? The labeled one? Here's my introduction. You know, as you guys are probably aware, when it comes to TIP projects, they actually, because of our classification as a second-class borough, they require a package of projects, not only to come to this assembly for approval, but also go to voters for approval. So until that actually happens, we don't have road projects under our TIP packages. But once they are approved by this assembly and approved by the voters, our team of Public Works starts implementing a phased process for moving these projects through from infancy through design, right-of-way acquisition, utilities, and ultimately through construction. As they pointed out here in phase one, there's a stack of tasks that kind of come together in the preliminary engineering, and not only planning, research, and alternatives analysis. And that's where we really identify the purpose and need for a project, which has a substantial meaning when it comes to projects in general, but also if there is ever any federal funding, purpose and needs is a substantial component of a project's supporting a project going forward. Environmental issues like wetlands, water bodies, sensitive environments, and then any kind of support activities, survey, geotechnical, those are all done under preliminary engineering. And then we move into our design phase where we take that information and we really start forming what project we will move the design through, so we're not wasting time. A design study report typically outlines what that looks like before we start developing our plan specifications and estimate. It's typically a milestone in our plan specification and estimate, about 75% complete, where we kind of stop work and we use that design. The design, for all intents and purposes, is complete or complete enough for us to start tackling the right-of-way phase. And then we circle back after we get through the right-of-way phase and actually do the final PS&E before we move into construction. So any questions there, I'd be more than happy to take them, but this kind of outlines the project development and the phases included in those. And then, like I said, I want to really focus on our right-of-way phase at some point tonight.
Yeah, this is Dave. What is the PS&E?
Through the mayor, I am an engineer. I've been doing this for 30 years. So some terms for me just become second nature. It is defined in this slide: plan specifications and estimate. In general, what it really forms is our construction documents, our plans, the specifications that are the narratives that form or that support the plans, and then the estimate, which is just exactly what it is, the cost component.
All righty. Thank you very much.
I'll try to do better at defining those terms or not using the acronyms themselves.
That'd be great.
So I've moved on to this next slide. This is really the TIP update part. This for you guys are aware, we have effectively 3 TIP packages that are in play right now. I call them TIP 21, TIP 23, and TIP 24. TIP 21 was developed shortly before I arrived as the Public Works Director, but you can see each of the project names and then the phases, and those phases are accompanied by a legend that I'll show here shortly. Actually, I'll just pop it up now for you. We've done a pretty good job of completing many of those projects. Some of them are still in design. Some are still in right-of-way, and we'll talk about that as we move along. TIP 23 was a set of projects that was passed by voters, but it was, the legislation required a 50% match. And since we were unable to, the thought then was we were going to get a match from the state, as had been traditionally done. And since that did not occur, we've had to get a little bit creative to move some of those projects along. Some of them are still dormant because we have an absence of any match, but we're still trying to plug away and strategize how best to do that. Specifically projects in that package of projects that we are looking to move forward, for instance, is the Inter-Outer Springer Loop Pathway. We were able to nominate that for a Transportation Alternatives Program. It's a federally funded program. We call it TAP. So that right now we're negotiating the agreement with the state of Alaska to move that project forward, and we're going to use the authorization for bonding these projects as our match, our required match, and the state provides the 90%, the rest of the other funding for this project. And there are other projects in that TIP 23 package that we're still strategizing to find ways to move them forward. TIP 24 is the more recent projects and actually has some pretty substantial projects in here as well. A lot of them are still in the preliminary engineering phase, but we've been successful in moving a couple of those forward quite quickly. So if there's no questions specifically on that slide, I can continue. Here's the part of the presentation that, yep.
So, yes, so I have a question. So you have, back to the previous slide. And, well, so there's TIP 21, no match required, and there's still some projects in the first phase, and then that's from 21, and then we've gone through 23. There's some that haven't even started, still in the first phase, and now we're in 24, and there's some in the first phase and some in phase 5. So how does a project in TIP 24, how does it move forward all the way to phase 5 without projects in TIP 21 even coming out of the first phase?
So through the mayor, some of the member Bowles. So a lot of these, many of the projects in TIP 24 are new projects, and they move forward independently of any prior ballot initiative. But some of them are projects that are, and you'll see that at the bottom here, did not require to go to the ballot for voter approval because they had been previously approved, but they did come before this body for additional authorization to go bond. And so some of those projects, like the Hemmer Road, the Fern Street, all those 4 projects at the bottom, those are still moving forward. You'll see a companion project listed for the initial authorization from the voters under TIP 21. So that's the voter approval. But because they needed additional funding, that came back to this body under TIP 24, under that same, it was actually an IM that was attached to the ordinance. The ordinance actually was only for the voter approval. So, if that's the confusing part, there are projects that are shown in both columns. They're basically the same project and they're moving together. They just had different sort of authorizations, either through voter or through funding approvals.
Go ahead, sir.
And through the mayor, to Mr. Bowles, and really the assembly in general. So there's always, usually on these lists, there's a project that's tough, where we don't know enough about the project to even know how to get it adequately scoped. So the Engstrom to Trunk connector is a good example. We don't know what that route is yet, but we don't have the authorization or the money to use area-wide funds to go and do the design work. This is the problem. This is one of the challenges with a second-class borough and having road service areas. And so we had to get it on the ballot just to get the authorization to start the design, to start doing that design study report that Tom talked about, to figure out what's even the best alignment. Some of them are pretty obvious, like Texall, which Tom's going to talk about in a minute. It's not rocket science. Texall, connect the two. But when you get the Engstrom trunk, you have a whole corridor you could run off of. And so actually, we talked today about this. You're going to be looking at the 4 alternatives, well, 5 technically, but you're going to be looking at that, and we're going to put that before you to make a decision moving forward. Some of you might recall years ago the Bogard Road East Extension, which goes from Palmer High to Colony High. was a lot of conversation, and the assembly had a lot of heated meetings about picking that alignment. And I'm not suggesting Ingstrom Trunk will be that bad, but the point is it requires a decision. So you're going to see projects that occasionally pop up where if we knew that, we would scope it appropriately on the ballot, but because we don't have area-wide authority to spend money on roads, we have to get it on the ballot, get the approval, and then we have to spend sometimes a couple years sorting through and figuring out what that answer is. And the Ingstrom Trunk is probably one of the tougher projects. Any of the ones where it involves a new connection, it's challenging because it usually means there's a significant need to acquire right-of-way. Whereas some of these others, you want to take a subdivision or residential or maybe a minor collector, upgrade it to a major collector, that's not as problematic. Your alignment's there and you might have some right-of-way needs, but you already have an established corridor, if that makes sense. So there's always going to be a few that lag behind, and I think that's probably the one you're asking about and going, well, why isn't that moving? Well, it isn't moving full speed ahead because we have to decide on a route. And when I say we, I mean you. Because I think it's significant enough that requires an assembly action. It's not something administratively that we would just go off and do on our own because it will impact property owners.
Is there a specific project that you could, in these columns that caught your eye?
So, yes, so through the mayor, yes. That's actually that one and Palmer Fishhook separated pathway. So with that, I guess a follow-up would be, is any of the funding that was designated to this road project, has it been moved to other road projects? Because that is of a concern, just off the cuff, honestly. Okay.
So through the mayor to Mr. Bowles. So one of the things, and Tom's talked about strategy, and we probably won't get to all this tonight, but there were two pathway projects that we found federal funding through a different program. He mentioned Inner Outer Springer, Palmer Fishhook's the other. We're transitioning those to largely federally funded projects. They're paying the majority of the bill. So when this was first envisioned and put on the ballot, that was not the strategy. So since then, we have been looking for opportunities, at least with these two, to take and make the majority of the funding become federal. And so what that means is, more than likely, maybe we'll participate in it, but DOT is likely going to execute the projects. I will tell you that's not going to get them to a complete status any faster because it will take a while. And the Palmer Fishhook Pathway project is complicated because of the cost of it and the need for right-of-way. And so some of this has been to preserve funding for other road projects and expand our ability to get work done within what we have the authority granted by voters, is to figure out how we can kind of pawn off, if you will, and leverage other funding opportunities. So those two in particular are slowing down because they're essentially being largely federalized. I mean, not entirely, because you got to have a non-federal match, but it helps us out significantly because it takes pressure off of some of the budget. And if you remember, last week I sent the assembly an email about the Safe Streets for All grant award, that $12 million award. That's also going to help us out because the 49th State Street pathway was in there, as was the Shaw Elementary Access, which is that roundabout at Wasilla Fishhook, which also services Birch Tree Charter. So that grant award now is going to help us out in these packages because we're now going to be able to leverage federal funds to another grant. But again, we got to have area-wide authority to begin with. So it's a little clunky sometimes, the process, but the good news is we're able now to leverage federal funds on at least 4 different projects.
I could take Dave's line earlier. I could sit here and geek out on transportation projects because that's what I spent my entire career doing. But, I knew Mike wanted not to spend the rest of the night talking individually about projects. I'd be more than happy to sit down about any projects you want to talk about and kind of explain where we're at. I can tell you that in some form, we are moving all of these projects along at a pace where we have authorization to do so, and we have the funding that's necessary to move it. So where you might see a project at TIP 21, not to belabor the point, it's not that it's being lagging, it's just that there's a reason that it might be trailing, typically due to complexity, but there is still progress being made on each of those. And some of these other projects that are all the way in TIP 24, there's a couple of these we already completed. And it's because they were simple in nature and we were able to just move at the, at the speed that we're able to. So, the summary down in this little corner here really shows of the 42-ish projects we have. 10 are still in preliminary engineering, 4 in design, 5 are in right-of-way phase, 4 have already been constructed, 9 are or 4 in construction. I would say even we could argue some of those are completed because they're in substantial completion. We got to wait till next year to see grass grow, before we actually close out a project. So they're not classified as complete, but for all intents and purposes, they are. 9 are complete. And then we had 3 that were grants to other agencies, City of Wasilla. We did a grant to the the Department of Transportation for a traffic light on Third Meridian, and then the Ski Talk grant. And then this doesn't even speak to the 4 projects that were in the 2018 package that were federalized, that were put for the CTP, the Community Transportation Program. So you got Hammer Road, Herman Road, Selden Extension Phase 2, and the Trunk Road Bridge at Wasilla Creek. So, I mean, there's a significant amount. I mean, I don't know that people really recognize how much work is actually being flushed through. And what you don't recognize is there's not a TIP 26 up there. And there won't be, but I'm hoping there might be a TIP 27. So, my shameless plug, sorry.
Thank you. I appreciate that information.
Absolutely.
For both of you.
Again, what I really want to do is kind of just highlight and focus on the right-of-way phase that we go through, because it's creeping up on some of these projects. To your point, Mr. Bowles, those projects that are lagging, they're lagging because they typically get to this right-of-way phase and then it's like going through quicksand. And we've got one, probably a little early in my presenting this, but there's a purpose we're here now, because here in your next meeting, you're going to start seeing that being presented in the form of dollar figures. So what is right of way and why does it matter? There's a definition of right of way in code, MSB 17.125. I'm not going to read every one of these, but I think we all understand what right of way is. I want to point out the fact there is a process. We do go through right of way acquisition. There's a couple taglines in here that you should probably look at. Balancing public need with private property rights. That's a sensitivity we all have. And at some point, the benefit of the public outweighs the private ownership. And that's an entitlement that government has. Requiring fair compensation, a due process. And, there's reference to the Uniform Act here. That's defined on the next slide. And then, of course, we go through appraisals, negotiations, potential condemnation, which is eminent domain. That's the power provided to government when the public need outweighs the private ownership. We'll talk about that a little bit more. There's several types of right-of-way acquired. Fee simple, which is just the outright purchase of the land. There's a permanent easement where we acquire permanent right to use the land, but the ownership, the underlying ownership remains in the private. It's held privately still, and things like public use easements, drainage easements, slope and maintenance easements, those are all permanent easements where we have a defined right, but we don't own the land. Temporary easements or permits, these are typically limited duration for construction activities like driveway reconstructions. And then I just point out that what we try to do here is resolve our right-of-ways and acquire right-of-ways before we actually go to construction. That hasn't always been how the borough's done things in the past, and I can tell you that at times that can bite you in the backside. So we try to limit the occasions when my backside gets bit. You gotta remember to hit the clicker here. My fancy little slides here. All right. And with everything, there's always regulations, laws, rules that we all have to abide by. In this case, when it comes to acquisition of rights of way, certainly there's federal regulations, the Uniform Relocation Assistance of Real Property Acquisitions Policy Act. It's a big mouthful. We call it the Uniform Act. It's generally anytime you have federal aid projects, that you're certainly required to follow that. I would say that act actually cascades, through the state, even when there's state-funded projects that aren't federally funded. The Uniform Act is typically the document that's referred to. And then we have Borough Code. There's several pieces of Borough Code. Title 23 deals with real property. which is the acquisition and disposition of real property for the Matsu Borough. But there's actually an exception in Title 23 that removes the acquisition of right-of-ways for road projects. And then there's the MSB 4315-070, which deals with right-of-way acquisition plats. In the boroughs, since they're, especially when I just said that, there's an exception out of Title 23, there's no other policy or process or code that specifically deals with acquiring right-of-way for road projects. So we typically defer to the Alaska DOT right-of-way manual. The pros and cons, in our RIP list projects, our road improvement projects that are more for RSAs, we follow a very informal process, very quick, because it's cheaper, it's faster, and we can get through those. Those typically don't require more than a couple different acquisitions. But when we have our TIP projects, they're the more complex. And so following this formal process that makes sure that there's a balance in the fairness in how you deal with the public and a justified process that can be supported throughout the project is important. Key steps in right-of-way acquisition, it always starts with planning, right? Once we have a project and we have a design, we start identifying the impacts and the parcels that are affected. We start preparing right-of-way maps, conducting title searches and identifying, encumbrances that are on those properties. Appraisals and reviews. This is part of acquiring properties. There's various thresholds depending on federal funding or state funding or, borough, if we're just borough funded projects that require an actual appraisal to be conducted, but there's also a different process that we can implement that doesn't necessarily require an appraisal and can just be a waiver valuation. And so, that can take different forms. Certainly, once you have established a fair market value for a property and ready for compensation to be offered, go through negotiations and agreements. One of the things that that it is in the state right-of-way manual is something that is going to be a part of our discussion going forward is an opportunity to provide acquisition incentives on top of the fair market value offer. And the intent of that would be to accelerate the process. Obviously, that has a price tag to it that should be evaluated with all projects. But the fairness clause of this is once you decide to offer those acquisition incentives for a project, you must offer them to all properties that are affected by the right-of-way acquisition for that project. You can't be selective in the incentives that you offer. So I think that's something that necessarily hasn't been used in the past on borough projects, but given the volume of the projects we have ahead of us that are going to require right-of-way and the desire to accelerate those processes, that's going to be something that we're going to be bringing forward for consideration and approval. Eminent domain, I keep coming back to that because I think the writing's on the wall. We have a number of projects out ahead of us that have significant right-of-way acquisitions, and while eminent domain is something we all want to avoid, that sooner or later there's going to be property owners that you just cannot come to a successful conclusion for an acquisition, and then the decision has to be made whether or not to exercise the right of eminent domain. And then I'll just reiterate the fact that, going to construction only after all right-of-way secured. Timelines, my staff kind of cringed a little bit when I put this slide in here because there's a whole bunch of different, every project is different and it really depends on the number of lots, complexity. So, some of these durations can be widely different than what I'm showing here. But generally, when I start talking to folks about the time frame it takes to get through right-of-way acquisitions for a project like Texal, we generally say it's somewhere between 18 and 24 months after the right-of-way maps are available to start before it takes an offer can be made to a property owner, the negotiation completed, and the deal closed. So it's a long time frame. Anybody that is familiar with the Bogart-Engstrom intersection and keeps asking the question about when's that roundabout going to be done, I think DOT would tell you the same thing. The right-of-way acquisition process is timely. Tonight's takeaway, so I want to make sure that you're aware that this isn't new to the borough. We've had big projects before. Bogart, Mike made mention of Bogart Road Extension East, and you can see each of these projects, and, we identified the number of parcels that were affected. Most of them have required condemnation of sorts. And I say of sorts because there's the friendly condemnation type of process, for specific purposes, and there's others where people just don't want to sell, and the borough has had to exercise the right of eminent domain. The project on the bottom is actually Selden Road. The borough built the first phase of Selden Road from Church to Windy Bottom. That's the parcel reference I did there, 20 parcels acquired for right-of-way. And then the state is currently in the process of right-of-way acquisition for the second phase, which is Windy Bottom to Pittman Road. This is basically the same slide I showed you first. Oh, it is the same slide I showed you the first time, but really these highlights are, the green highlights are showing those projects that we're currently in the right-of-way phase for. And then the yellows are those projects that are coming very soon or have a phase ahead of them that have right-of-way acquisitions. So most importantly, you can see, Lucille Street on the tip 21 column over there near the bottom, that's already in the right-of-way acquisition phase. We have professional services, a consultant that's helping us through that process right now. Fern Street, there's two phases of that project. We're in phase one. We are negotiating with a landowner right now for an easement. It's the last easement we need for the phase one to go to construction this year. We recently issued a best and final offer, and I'm hoping that is successful. Otherwise, this issue of eminent domain may come to us sooner than we really want it to. Texal is the project that you will have legislation in front of you here shortly for a seven-figure contract for professional service only to support us through the right-of-way acquisition phase. That does not even include the actual acquisition of the rights-of-way. So when we recently negotiated this contract and knew it was coming before you, I saw this as an opportunity to give you a heads up, and this is the opportunity for that. So if there's any questions when you see that coming before you in the next assembly packet, I would encourage you to reach out and ask me questions so that we're not up here at the next meeting trying to battle it out for that particular contract. Again, there's a number of projects over in the tip 24 side. You can see many of them are in their infancy, either in preliminary engineering or otherwise. But projects like Green Forest, Engstrom North, which is an extension up to Texal, Johnson's Road upgrade out towards the Big Lake area. The project Mike mentioned earlier about Engstrom Road to Trank Road connector, that, fairly significant improvement to our network. All projects that sooner or later are going to require us to address the right-of-way issue. So if there's no questions, I'll move on from that particular slide. What do I need from the assembly? I mean, that's the important part here, right? I put 3 taglines in here. I mean, really set the stage. I mean, you as our elected officials provide the legal framework, the funding, the political backing for right-of-way acquisition, balancing the public's need for infrastructure with the rights of property owners. Ultimately what that means is when we do have to come forward for eminent domain, that authorization starts here before I end up in his lap, because law is typically that takes that forward with the declaration of taking only after the assembly's approval. Stay involved. Understand the project elements. I invite every one of you to come talk to me about projects. Every one of you has projects that are in your district. Some are fairly substantial. Some maybe not as substantial as others, but I welcome you to come sit down, talk to me and my team, get some insight of what those projects involve. Attend the public meetings to hear from affected landowners. Participate in the decisions at the appropriate milestones. We're very deliberate in what we've been doing here lately and providing information to the assembly when we're making decisional document, really key decisions on how to move forward. So if there's some other opposition as a board, as a body that we don't, that Public Works should go in a different direction, there's an opportunity for that discussion. And then project approval and funding, approving the budgets, allocating necessary funds for appraisals, negotiations, and the TIP 27 package. So with that being said.
Assemblyperson Nowers, go ahead.
Thank you. there's a lot in there. I think it underscores for me when we're permitting all this development, all the costs that come with it. And some of those are really big bills. I appreciate that you brought up Bogard Ingstrom. I think that has been in right away. I don't understand how long it's been in right away. I mean, that project's been on the list since I got elected, and that's been a while. And I feel like it's been in right away even longer than the timelines here. I did want to ask you about one project, the Hemmer Road North project, that we got the federal dollars for, and the state is doing that. As part of that project, they are working on Chalet Drive, which is a very short section of road. They're paving, fixing that. The borough is interested in having the additional 300, 400, 500 feet of road, very small section, paved. We reached out to the state, the road service area, and the borough, and the answer back was, well, it's a federal project. It's not part of the project. We're not going to pay for it. If you guys are interested in paying for it, we still don't think we could help you out with having the guy who's out there with the paving truck just pave that last part of road. And I kind of get the administrative bureaucracy that's out there, but it just seems ridiculous to me that they're going to have a truck out there. We potentially could help fund this dirt road that needs to be paved. It's a very short section, and the answer from the state is we can't possibly, do that. Go ahead and be on your own. I just wonder if there's anybody we can continue to talk to at the state about what is like. I mean, it's seriously a very small thing to ask them for. It's not like we're asking a big add-on, and I think potentially the RSA would be willing to fund it. So I don't know if you have any suggestions for additional work we could do with the state to make that happen and save the taxpayers across the board money.
Well, through the mayor, some member hours, as you recognize, I mean, there's a big bureaucracy when you come with federal funding, and the process of changing scopes of work or even adding a small segment is a little bit cumbersome. I would suggest, and we've talked about this before, the best opportunity to do that is to make sure the RIP list for this RSA includes that project and find a way to fund that through the RSA and try to mesh the timelines so that one element of work is potentially ready to go when the other does, or do it in advance of the federal project or the state project. And then, taking advantage of a contractor on the side versus trying to run it through the conduit of the state. And those RIP lists should be in front of this assembly in the first meeting in February.
I appreciate that. I think that is a perfect example of bureaucracy at its worst. And we could use that as an example with our state officials and federal officials, that they don't have any leeway to even, the answer is just well, the bureaucracy is so hard, we can't possibly have the paving truck go 3 more feet, and just to be shut down like that. I hope we share that with people at the state and the federal level, that we need to make it easier to do things that make sense.
I would just say, everybody always says federal money's free. I could tell you federal money, there's too many strings to be considered free. And there's a lot of frustrations that come with using federal money. But your comments received. We'll continue to try to do our best to see if there is a different opportunity, but I fear that I'm going to have a bruise on my forehead when I'm done having that conversation.
Any other questions? Anybody online have any questions? I'll just do an editorial comment here that those words regarding the condemnation process, there's only 2 or 3 words there, but if anybody at this table or in the audience that has ever gone through that, I was at the city of Palmer when they redid the airport, when they took all the houses from the other side by the river and brought them all over to this side. And that is a long, drawn-out process, and let me warn you, you'll be lobbied by many people regarding how the appraisal is not good, they didn't consider this or whatever. So it looks good on the presentation, 2 or 3 words, but it will be a different story, I think. Yes, Assembly for some votes, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I was thinking during the presentation, I figured, I better not ask. It's maybe dumb. But out of curiosity, in the negotiation process for rights of way, the borough has gobs of land. Has it ever been negotiated to provide the landowner with another piece of property for that right of way? For example, half an acre on the Sioux or something along those lines.
I don't know if it ever has or
Through
not.
the manager, or excuse me, through the mayor to Assemblymember Bowles, I think that is a potential. I think code does allow for basically a trade. I couldn't speak to whether or not the borough's ever done it before.
I guess anything's a possibility, sir.
Just thinking that might save a lot of time and money. I know there's a lot of fellow fishermen in the borough. There's a lot of fellow hunters in the borough. And I mean, land on water and land in the woods is enticing. So thank you.
Well, I can tell you, Mr. Bowles, that, I mean, for the most part, most of these acquisitions along these road corridor projects are fairly small acquisitions. So, you know, that concept might not fit neatly for like a Texel, for instance. I could tell you it's a conversation we did have for another project that had substantial amount of right-of-way that we were seeking to acquire across a property. And that property owner proposed a swap. And we did work with land management to see if the land that was specifically identified was a candidate for that. You know, and at that time, the borough chose to not make that piece of land. So, but the process is available. Let's just put it that way.
You ready? Thank you, sir. Okay. Mike, are you all done? All righty. Mr. Attorney, report?
No. No, Mayor, no report tonight, thank you.
You're not anxious to get in the condemnation process?
I am not.
Madam Clerk.
Clerk's report is in your red folder with the upcoming meeting schedule and also the quasi judicial report. And also the Commission on Salaries and Emoluments will start, it's going to be meeting on January 12th, plus yeah, we hadn't gotten there yet. January 12th, and they've also scheduled January 13th, just in case they needed it. And that's it.
Okay. We're ready. The next item on our agenda is citizens and other correspondence. Are there any comments on any of the citizens and other correspondence? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, then we're ready for the IMs when you are.
IM 26-7, reporting conclusion of contract number 24112B with Northern Asphalt Construction for a total contract amount of $911,764.10 for the North Erica Drive Road Improvements Project. IM 26008, informing the Assembly of the manager's approval of and submittal of the 2026 online volunteer fire assistance grant applications for the Department of Emergency Services fire service areas of Sutton, Talkeeton, and Willow. And Willow Caswell. IM 26-9, informing the Assembly of the manager's signature on and the submittal of a Matsu Valley Stream Bank Habitat Rehabilitation and Protection Cost Share Program application requesting $2,100 from the Alaska State Department of Fish and Game for the Caswell Creek Stream Bank restoration.
Are there any comments on the IMs? Okay, hearing none, then they are presented. So the next item on the agenda is audience participation, but because we don't have any public hearings tonight, our audience participation, that's really after public hearings. So we'll have audience participation. We do have a sign-up sheet. Then I will say there are no public hearings this evening, and then I will open up the next audience participation. So it'll be a little bit unusual. And also I want to call your attention to that the reconsideration that is on the agenda, that is not a public hearing. So if you want to give some input, please be sure that you do that during one of the two audience participations. Okay? So, we'll open up, oh, you've got some cross-outs already, huh? Okay, audience participation, John, you're first then.
You'll have to turn the mic back on.
Do that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. My name is John Klaprick, K-L-A-P-P-E-R-I-C-H. I'm a 48-year Matsu Borough taxpayer, and I want to congratulate you and thank you. This administration has been very thorough, transparent, and effective, and I really appreciate the recent additional outreach to engage your constituents. I hear Dimitri and people saying there's new opportunities out there, and I think you're taking advantage of them. And it's really crucial because people want to feel not only are we heard, but we're listened to. You look at me, you advise, and so I'm here just to number one, thank you, but there's an introduction tonight for an item 2 weeks from tonight. And with all the payoffs and the frustrations in the world, this is a win-win-win situation. It's a transfer of a liquor license into downtown Wasilla. And why I say it's a win-win-win situation is, number one, I'm on the comp plan 2045 for the city of Wasilla in the downtown area there, and that all those new traffic routes going around there, and really what's going to happen by 2045. And one of the number one things is more tier 1 opportunities for entertainment. And this will allow that. And number 2 is it will increase sales tax for Wasilla, and they can do more of their own laundry. They don't need to look to the borough. Number 2, it's more local hire. Number 3 is it allows opportunities for especially commuters that feel that they have to go to Anchorage for a better tier 1 dining experience. This will allow that. And it's significant. Why I'm asking for unanimous approval is parking in downtown Wasilla is a really significant thing. And street parking, and where are you going to park in Wasilla? And this is a very unique situation. It's the Last Frontier Brewing Company on Boundary and Swanson. And the owner is a 40-year resident of the borough and in business for 40 years. So he purchased another paved parking lot adjacent, paved it, lighted it free, and 50 feet from that is another City of Wasilla paved lighted parking lot across from the Grape Tap, which closed, and 100 feet in the other direction is another paved public parking across from the Crazy Tap, and 50 feet from that is where the old Wasilla Fire Department was, which is a public parking. So there's 5 parking lots within this area. And I know someone said, oh, we don't need more business. We don't need people coming downtown Wasilla. There's no parking. There's plenty of parking in this particular section. Makes sense for everybody. It's a win-win-win-win situation. So I highly encourage you. It's 200 pages in your IM. And as conscientious as you are, you may have not had the opportunity to read the 200 pages, but this has been in the process for over a year. The city, AMCO, everyone's heard about it, and administration says we approve it. It's in the best interest. Thank you.
Thank you. Rod?
Good evening, everybody. My name is Rod Hanson, and I'm here tonight representing North Lakes Community Council. Looking forward to a collaborative and productive new year. First off, I'd like to recommend an agenda item for a future assembly meeting, and the subject might be something like communication protocols. And the purpose would really be to gain a better understanding of how to best have discussions with community councils and individual assembly members, commissioners, and board members. As a community council, I think we have a general understanding of the need to really be careful and avoid, this ex parte situations. But I can tell you that personally, there's a little bit of confusion that I have, and I think other members of our council have. So we'd like to better understand the do's and don'ts associated with that, and not create problems. So my thoughts would be like a presentation, maybe from the borough attorney, and one that you all would hear, and the community council folks could come in and hear, here's how this best works. So if you would, please give some consideration to maybe putting that on a future agenda, and I would be happy to work in advance with some maybe standard Q&As that could be addressed. But I think not only the North Lakes Council, but I think other community councils would really get some value out of that sort of a discussion. Secondly, I'd like to express support from the NLCC for an applicant to the District 6 seat on the Planning Commission. Most of the NLCC council falls within Dimitri's District 6. We recently reached out to our membership and residents and encouraged folks to apply for that position. And one of our members, Kathleen Yerbik, submitted recently an application, which I believe is still under review by the mayor's office. She lives in the heart of North Lakes and has a real keen interest in issues of importance to our community. And so we just encourage selection of her to the Planning Commission. And then lastly, I'd like to respond to Tom's presentation about projects and right-of-way acquisition process. As you know, the North Lakes Council has a very active road and traffic safety committee. Several months ago, we began having monthly coordination meetings with Tom and Alex and some of the managers that work for Tom. We also began similar monthly coordination meetings with the state DOT chief and some key management there. And while we don't always see things the same way and eye to eye, we're very pleased with the way these relationships are working out. We try to listen well, we try to learn, and we get the same vibe from the borough and the state officials that we are meeting with. We particularly agree with Tom's last slide, where he talked about what he needs from you, the assembly. And, you know, if you think about the work that lies ahead, and there's not going to be a TIP 26, but there will be a TIP 27, there's a lot of work coming down the path, and the better informed you all are, and the better on the same page we all are, I think is really critical. So we're looking forward to another great year, and thank you for your service.
Thank you. And Tom is on here, but we did his presentation earlier. Jackie?
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Assembly. My name is Jackie Goforth. I typed that in big letters so I wouldn't have to use my reading glasses. On December 16th, I sat here and listened to the president of the Friends of the Wasilla Library nonprofit, and what she said almost knocked me off my chair. I have waited 2.5 years to hear this. Here's a quote. She never mentions, that's me, that 10 books of her 56 that she required be removed from school libraries were actually removed by librarians before the Library Citizens Advisory Committee for the school district began to meet, unquote. Now, I didn't fall off my chair because she credited me with full responsibility for that, which is ridiculous. I didn't even know it was happening. But I fell out of my chair because she's saying the librarians removed 10 of those books before they even met, and they've been telling us for 2.5 years that they don't do that. So the second page you see is my FOIA request, because I want the list of those 10 books, and I want the authors, because only 7 books came back. Only 7 books were adjudged by the LCAC as being unanimously. I want to know which the other 3 are. So either I'm going to get my request back filled saying which 10 they are, or I'm going to get back something that says there's no record found, which means that this person is lying and expecting people to believe it. Now, the next part is very, very, very important. I'm going back to her statement. Because they were removed because those librarians did their due diligence and said, those books should not be in school libraries. Do you understand what she just said? She just said that there are books that shouldn't be in school libraries available for children. And for 2.5 years, they have fought me and called me every name in the book and anybody standing beside me, because we said that too. There are books that shouldn't be in the hands of children. This is an admission. Let's go on. I can tell you a lot more of the background on all that. We don't have time for that. So bottom line, the judge agreed with the librarians that those books should have been removed because they were obscene. I have spent 2.5 years being demeaned, ridiculed. You should see the online attacks that have been going on. And for what? They knew the books were obscene. They took them out. She said so. She said so. And yet she's saying that those of us citizens who cared enough to please get these books away from children, we were wrong when they actually did it themselves. This is an admission. This is admissible in court. I kind of wish the school hadn't settled. Now, it's not a librarian's fault that someone is writing perverse pedophilia, pornography. It's not. I'm a writer. I know how this works. It's not a librarian's fault that publishers are publishing it. It's not anybody's fault at a library that it's being advertised to them and pushed to them. But they have a right and a duty to cull the books, and they always should have been. And thank you so much for what you have done to protect our children and their innocence, because they knew the entire time that they had obscene books in there. Thank you.
And then Simon?
Hello, Assembly and Mayor. Simon Gilland. I would like to give a little snippet on top of what I presented last week about Ordinance 25-102. I still think that the wells and radiuses and septic areas don't belong on the plat. But I think that what is contained in that ordinance is really two separate things. The 30,000 square foot lots is one thing. The well and septic onto the plat face is something separate. Maybe one will kill the other, but from a planning standpoint, 30,000 square foot lots will work, and I do support that portion of the ordinance. The question is, what is the borough as the platting governing body? What is their duty to protect adjacent neighbors from someone's well and septic infringing upon what they can and can't do on the lot that they purchased? So I am in support of the 30,000 square foot to change for the platting on the code there. But I do think that the well and the septic should not be on the plat face. As I sent to Assemblyman Sumner and my Assemblyman Mike Bowles, covenants on and I sent them examples, covenants on existing subdivisions from 4 or 5 years ago that I've previously worked on. In the covenants, there are requirements on what you can and can't do with the well and septic. There's a note to those covenants on the plat face. I think that's a much better way to go about this. It's still legally binding. It prevents people from accidentally or intentionally affecting their neighbors' ability to develop their lots. But it also prevents the need to bring a plat back for public comment, which is what changes to the plat face do require. So I thank you for your time, and Happy New Year.
Thank you. And now we've done the people that have signed up, but yes, yes, come forward, sir. Mhm.
My name's Joel Stefanski, 43-year resident of the Matanuska Valley. I am not a big fan of the 25-102 ordinance going from 40,000 square feet to 30. I've worked for all the big contractors here since 1984. Howdy, Big Dipper, Turner, all the big subdivisions. I've cut the right-of-ways, house sites, I worked for MEA 28 years. I was a supervisor of the right-of-way clearing department. I was in charge of over 2,000 miles of distribution transmission, all the underground overhead that went into all these thousands of houses. I've seen a lot of good and a lot of bad. As you know, we're in the Matanuska Valley, terminal moraine, a lot of angulated lots, a lot of young people trying to buy houses here. I think my big thing is setting people up for success in the future. I think going from a 40,000 square foot lot, which is, you know, if you go 208 by 208 feet, that's a square. That's almost 43,560 square feet is an acre. To go down to 30,000 square feet, we're going to really do a disservice to future homeowners because of the angulation of the lots, the other adjacent lots, and their wells and septics. We're going to set these people up for failure. Most septic systems last 30, 40 years. So what do they do when they have to do a new leach field? You got pad mounts, you got trench leach fields, and then you can't do it because of where the neighbor's septic system and well is. You got to think about that. Who's going to pay the fine? You know, the $1,000 fine is nothing, but 30, 40 years down the road, they're going to have to replace that leach field. Who's going to pay for that? They won't be able to do it because of the obstructions of the neighbor's well and septic. And you got to think about that. Are we going to set ourselves up for success or failure? Right now, if you approve this, Platinum Board approves this, it's going to cause a lot of problems down the road. When I worked for MEA 28 years, we put service lines over leach fields. So what's that going to do when you have to replace that leach field? Who's going to pay for it? Guess what? The homeowner, the taxpayer pays for that, not the borough. So think about where we're going and what the consequences of shrinking these lots down to 30,000 square feet. I appreciate your time. Anytime you want to talk, and I've talked to two very credible people that do septic systems, they say it's not going to work most of the time. So they have a tough time at 40,000 square foot putting in septic systems right now. Thank you very much for your time, and hopefully you make the right decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else who would like to testify to the assembly? Okay, we do have 3 people online. Okay, go ahead, the first person online, please.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Assembly members. My name is Dee Dee Wilson, and I serve as the president of the Big Lake Chamber of Commerce. Our chamber represents local businesses, nonprofits, and community stakeholders who are deeply invested in the long-term economic vitality and quality of life within the Matanuska-Susitna Borough. We are concerned about the recent action on Ordinance 25-133, which will significantly impact Big Lake community. For decades, the Big Lake Lions Recreation Center has been a cornerstone for community gatherings, hosting weddings, celebrations of life, nonprofit fundraisers, and other events that strengthen our social fabric. Historically, renters have been permitted, in compliance with applicable laws, to serve alcohol at their discretion with the proper permits and event insurance policies. Reversing this long-standing practice will not only diminish the marketability of the facility as a rental venue, but also reduce its utilization, resulting in fiscal impacts for the borough and limiting opportunities for community engagement. These events often support local businesses and nonprofits, creating a ripple effect that benefits the broader economy. A stable and predictable policy environment is essential for sustaining community facilities and economic activities. Decisions of this nature should carefully weigh historical practices, economic implications, and the needs of residents and organizations that rely on these spaces. We appreciate the borough's assembly's commitment to listening to stakeholders and considering community perspectives. The Big Lake Chamber of Commerce respectfully urges the assembly to please reconsider the recent action taken on Ordinance 25133. Thank you for your service and the opportunity to provide this testimony.
Thank you. Go ahead, whoever's next online.
Yeah, my name is Terry Gorlick. I'm a resident in the Big Lake area. And first and foremost, I'm a conservative individual, but I truly believe in government. There should be faith and prayer. That's just me. And I would love to have had your meeting start with a prayer and have most or all borough meetings start with a prayer. So I'm going to do one that I believe is probably appropriate, which would be, let us pray, that God looks over, the borough mayor, the clerk, the manager, the attorney, and all the esteemed borough assembly members for guidance, wisdom, and positive outcomes, and inspire unity and clarity in decisions, and their safe travel to and fro. Amen. My main purpose to call today was in regards to that ordinance 25133. Being, an Orthodox individual, I'm Jewish by faith. I'm familiar with both the Old Testament and the New Testament, and in both areas, some of the oral traditions and laws. And recently after your last meeting, I heard some folks in Three Bears on Pittman talking about, the borough assembly made the ruling in Big Lake all because Jesus is abstinent, and I want to make sure if they're listening tonight that they know that he wasn't abstinent. He drank, but he believed only in fermented beer and wine in that respect, and really wine because of being of a Jew when he was born. Jewish culture in that first century, it was customary during meals for wine and during events. And it speaks of, and Jesus himself drank wine, speaks of that in Matthew 11, 18-19 speaks of that. He was very careful. He demonstrated moderate consumption. Jesus turned wine into water in John 2, in chapter 2, verse 1-11, the wedding of Cana, he turned water into wine. And in 1 Timothy 5:23, Apostle Paul spoke in regards to where wine was good for the betterment of the body, some aspects of the stomach and those sorts of things. So I want folks out there to know that no one should be making a decision based on they thinking that Jesus didn't drink wine. I think that shouldn't be the case, and our decision shouldn't be based on that. But definitely, I don't drink. So, I'm not one to be talking a lot about drinking, except that I truly believe there should be nothing but wine or beer served. So
Go ahead and finish.
if you do an ordinance, please make it only beer and wine. And if you could remove hard alcohol from even the liquor stores, I'd want to do that also. So, but please add something to make it only beer and wine. And if you can add also another amendment in there, they have to put the 10 Commandments in that building, because I think the 10 Commandments should be in all the borough buildings. So that's just me. I apologize if I offended anybody. I'm just strong in believing that faith and prayer should be in part of our normal everyday practice. Thank you very much. I apologize if I've offended anybody.
Next person online, please.
My name is Glenda Smith, and I'm a borough resident over here in Meadow Lakes. And I wanted to comment on ordinance 25102. I think everything that's been said, or that I could say has been said. I'm opposed to a smaller lot size for many reasons already stated. And the other thing that I wanted to make a comment about, I don't expect any response tonight, but on the port report, when we were talking about a fuel tank farm with Crowley, I just wondered what happened to the lease for a port tank farm that we had with Vitus Marine and Central Alaska Energy. So, and that's all. Thank you, Mayor and Assembly, for your time.
Thank you. Does that take care of everybody online? Oh, we still got 3 new ones. Okay. Go ahead. Go ahead, the next person online, please.
Can you go to the next one, Caleb?
Hello, this is Ken McCarty, and Happy New Year to all of you, and Mayor DeVries, and Manager Brown, and all the Assembly members. I'd like to speak to you just some information about the annex now. We met in December on the 16th, and there's a resolution, and I want to make it clear to the Assembly what that was about. There was discussion, just brief discussion over the year, and what was stated is that no further discussion could take place without the Assembly allowing for discussion, so it's not taking up borough personnel time. There was no desire for any type of commitment and decision, but just to allow for discussion. So it was a protocol thing that had to happen. People of Eagle Exit came, and they presented their piece that they wanted to shut down the consideration of option thinking and disrupted that piece of discussion. I was very concerned about that because here, as we problem solve, we want to look at the options and explore them rather than being told we only have to go one direction. The people of Eagle Exit told you that they submitted a technical review, which would be, they had to hear within 45 days, which was January 5th, that they'd hear the results of that technical review. January 5th was yesterday, and at a meeting with Eagle Exit and a few of us from Annex Now were presenting there, that they told everybody that response from the Boundary Commission would not be heard for a couple more weeks. Let me let you know that a technical review doesn't have a timeline on it. That the Boundary Commission could take as long as they want to review those different pieces. We submitted a technical review to them in May of 25 and didn't have an expected time, but hoping to hear from them soon. And it took them about 60 days to respond. So I just wanted to pass that information on to you. The bottom line in all of this is what is beneficial to Mat-Su and what can be beneficial to Chugach-Eagle River. So again, thanks for your time, and be careful out there in this interesting weather.
Next person online, please.
Good evening. My name is Kathy Kaiser. I acknowledge and honor that I live on the ancestral lands of the Dena'ina and Natna peoples. I also honor my own traditional territory of the Blackfoot Confederacy, of which I am a descendant. Imagine walking into your local library and finding empty shelves, not because the books are checked out, but because someone decided you shouldn't be allowed to read them. That's not freedom, that's censorship, and it's happening right here in our borough. Book banners will tell you they're the good guys. They'll say they're protecting children. They'll claim they're defending parents' rights and shielding society from dangerous ideas. But here's the truth. This is a manufactured crisis. Children are not checking out adult books. Never have. There have been zero parental complaints about what kids are reading in our public libraries. None. As a matter of fact, only one parent has even elected to receive emails about what their children are checking out of the library. The outrage is fabricated to justify censorship. Book banners are afraid of change, of progress, of losing privilege and power. So they impose their insecurities and narrow worldview on the rest of us. They cling to control by restricting access to accurate history, diverse stories, and critical thinking. They know something important. Free people read freely. Reading builds curiosity, empathy, and autonomy, and that terrifies them. So they work hard to interfere with our right to read. It's the same story time after time. Somebody feigns outrage over a book they've never read, and suddenly that book disappears from the shelf. Not because the content changed, but because censorship is organized. Book banners will tell you they're the good guys. But the real defenders of freedom are those who welcome imagination, encourage diversity, and resist censorship. Those who understand what's at stake when books vanish. We have the power to stop this, to preserve our right to read and write without interference. But it takes all of us speaking up loudly, repeatedly. If we do, we can restore free speech. We can return the stories and information they're trying to steal. Right now, this fight is local. Our borough library board is actively censoring what librarians can and can't order. They've already blocked books and videos from the adult collection. This is happening here, and it will continue unless we act. So tonight, I'm asking this assembly to take a stand for intellectual freedom. Give the responsibility for ordering books back to the trained professionals, our librarians, and remove it from the untrained, politically biased board members. Let librarians do the job they were hired and educated to do, provide access and information to everyone. If we act now, we can keep our shelves full, our minds open, and our community free.
Okay, next person online. No, we don't have anybody, or they can't get on, or we're done? We're done, okay. Ready, so I'm gonna go ahead and close the first audience participation, and then I've been requested to have a break. So we'll break until 8:35. Are you getting a text from somebody that, no, okay. So,
Madam Mayor?
yes,
Yeah, Doug Massey is still on the line by public comment. He hasn't been unmuted.
well, we will, when we come back, we'll have the, we'll announce no public hearing, and then we'll open up audience participation again for the second time. So, are they having trouble getting on, or what?
Madam Mayor, I just got a text that he was on the line and he wasn't able to speak next. I don't know if he needs to raise his hand or what.
Maxwell, they may want to hang up and call back in while we're on break. Something's wrong. We've tried to get them through twice.
Okay, thank you. Yep, we're on break.
Okay, thank you. When I told you I wanted to go back.
If I can go ahead and have everybody come back to the assembly, please.
I have no idea. Sumner didn't say who it was. At least I couldn't hear him. I'm not going to those links, Kayla.
So I'm going to go ahead and call the assembly meeting back to order again, please. And there are no public hearings for this meeting, and now we're at the next audience participation. I believe we do not have a sign-up sheet, but we may have some people online. So we'll go ahead and go to the people online, please. So next person online, please.
Hey, good evening. My name is Doug Massey. Thank you for having me, Madam Mayor, Assembly members. A little bit about me. I'm a lifelong Mat-Su resident. It'll be 50 years next week, actually. Retired Alaska State Trooper after 25 years serving as Division Director. Small business owner. I'm actually building a large event venue in the Kinnick Fairview area, one of the largest in the valley. It's under construction now, and I have all my borough permits, I'm glad to say, so far. I'm also assistant coach for the Houston High School hockey team. I'm also the fundraising coordinator for Houston High School hockey, which I've put on one of the largest gun shows in the valley at the Big Lake Rec Center for the past couple of years. Also president of the Mat-Su Guns and Hoses nonprofit organization, which hosts the largest hockey game in the Mat-Su. About 3,000 participants. We do serve beer and wine at that event at the Menard Sports Center. I'm calling to hope that you reconsider Ordinance 25-133. I think that it would be a huge missed opportunity to not allow or continue to allow the use of people renting that facility and choosing to have alcohol as part of that. I can say this from experience. We've had the largest event of its kind for the past 4 years, 4 successful years. We've had 0 incidents, and we've served alcohol at every event. Over half of our attendees choose to sit in the wet side of the building. I started to broker a deal with the Lions Club on doing an event at the Big Lake Lions Club. Well, when it was still the Big Lake Lions Club, we were going to do a Pucks and Pints event to raise money for the high school hockey team. We would have a beer tasting in the event area while the kids were down in the ice rink playing hockey. 2 separate events, but kind of one event. We were going to do that to raise money to keep the kids on the ice. Again, I hope that you reconsider the ordinance. I can tell you, from experience, we've had large events, 0 incidents, and, watching the Big Lake facility from weddings to political events to retirement parties and everything in between, I have yet to see any incidents come out of and if any of those events from the use of alcohol. I think, done responsibly, done, with oversight, and, you could really reduce the vicarious liability that comes with an event like that by requiring people to have their own liquor liability, which is what we do. Again, I hope you reconsider it, because I think it's a huge opportunity lost. Both Palmer and Wasilla hockey rinks allow alcohol in their facilities, and they also have zero incidents when they host those events. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. The next person that's online, please. We don't have anybody else? Oh, we do. I'm sorry, I asked you questions that can be answered either yes or no, both ways. So that's it for everybody. Okay, all right, thank you. And I think everybody that's here has already testified under the first audience participation. So one last chance, nobody there? Okay. I'm going to go ahead and close the second audience participation, and we're now to consent agenda. And I know we did have some things that were pulled, but is there anything else that any member of the assembly wants to pull? Guess not. Okay, Madam Clerk.
AM 26003, approval of contract amendment number 2 to contract 2595P with New Vision Architecture to add $147,453.60 for additional design-related services for Birch Tree Charter School, and to authorize an additional $150,000 in change order, authority for unforeseen design contingencies.
Okay, Assemblyperson Fauna.
I move to approve the consent agenda as read into the record by the clerk.
Is there any objection? Okay, seeing and hearing none, and the consent agenda as read has been approved, but I know there are a couple things pulled, right? Madam Clerk, go ahead.
AM 261, awarded bid number 2684B to Sampson Electric in the amount of $217,182 to construct the Palmer Junior Middle School elevator upgrades. It was pulled by Assemblymember Bowles.
Okay, Assemblymember Bowles, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So the reason
You need to move it first.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I move AM 26-001.
Okay, now you may speak to it.
So, thank you, Madam Mayor. So, the reason I requested these be pulled from the consent agenda is I just wanted to have some clarification. I understand, we have the borough budget and then we have the borough school board budget, and these are school elevators. So I was curious as to why they were on our agenda and not under the school board's agenda. And on the break, I spoke with the manager and he clarified that for me. So I'm clear now, unless we need to discuss that on the record.
Okay. No. Does anybody else have any discussion of that AM that they want to put on the record? Go ahead.
Madam Mayor, I had a question about these two that were pulled by Mr. Bowles. I noticed that most of the time in these capital projects we have, when there's competing bids, they have a breakdown of the different bids. I noticed that on these two, there was not that breakdown. All we have is that it's the lowest responding and responsible bidder. I guess my question is, were there any cheaper bids, and were they excluded from being responsible or responding for any reason?
Okay, go ahead.
Through the mayor to Mr. Sumner, to first clarify, I talked to purchasing today. The bid analysis will be attached to all future AMs as they were in the past. So just, I guess, an administrative oversight, for lack of a better term. Both of these bids had multiple bidders. No one was excluded, and the one for recommendation was the lowest bid. So those bid analysis will be included in all future packets.
Thank you. That would be my next question. So thank you.
Okay. So is there I can just ask for, oh no, I can't ask for a no objection because we have people online.
Any objection, and if you don't have no objection, then it passes.
Okay, even when people are online, yeah, because they got to speak up. All right, yeah, okay. Is there any objection to approving AM 26-001? Any objection online? Okay, so it passes. Madam Clerk.
AM 26002, awarded bid number 2685B to Gertz Construction in the amount of $208,844 to construct the Palmer High School elevator upgrades, pulled by Assemblymember Bowles.
Okay, Assemblyperson Bowles.
I move to accept AM 26-002.
Okay, would you like to speak to it?
No, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Would anybody else have questions and would like to speak to it? Is there any objection to AM 26-002? Any objection online? Okay. So then those two have been presented and are approved. We do not have any unfinished business. There are no vetoes. And Madam Clerk, new business, please.
Introduction for public hearing on January 20th, Resolution 26001, Ordinance 262 with accompanying Ordinance 263, Ordinance 264 with accompanying Ordinance 265, and Ordinance 267.
Okay, Assemblyperson Fala.
I move to introduce legislation as read into the record by the clerk and set the public hearing for the January 20, 2026.
Is there any discussion? Is there any objection? Hearing none, then the legislation has been introduced. Assemblyperson Fano, vacancy report?
I move to confirm Mayor's recommendation as follows. Agriculture Advisory Board resignation of Misty O'Connor. Animal Care and Regulation Board Carrie N. Brofil. Board of Adjustment and Appeals resignation of Jesse Ron Gitch. Library Board Cynthia Redmond. Local Emergency Planning Committee Sherry Carrington. Planning Commission Brandon Carpenter. Water Waste Advisory Board Danny Noland. Central Matsu FSA number 130 Brian Davis. Big Lake RSA number 21 Randy Richards. Fairview RSA number 14 Lauren Means.
Okay. Is there any discussion? Is there any objection? Okay, hearing no objection, the agent's vacancy report has been approved. There is no other new business. Just a minute, I'll get to the next page. There are no referrals. And now we are to the motion for reconsideration. Madam Clerk.
Ordinance 25-133, an ordinance allowing renters of the Big Lake Lions Recreation Center to consume and serve alcoholic beverages per the terms of the rental agreement at the Big Lake Lions Recreation Center.
Okay, Assemblyperson Bowles.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I move to accept ordinance 25 I move to reconsider, excuse me. I move to reconsider ordinance 25-133.
Okay, and discussion?
If I could speak to it.
Sure.
So thank you, Madam Mayor. So yes, so on this, if everybody remembers, it was about 11 o'clock at night when we were discussing this at the last meeting. And there was good discussion, but it was, in my opinion, kind of brief. We got a good brief on what entities of the borough do and do not allow alcohol. And since the next day, looking into it a little bit more, it was confirmed that there are borough entities that allow this. And with that confirmation, as well as the understanding from borough attorney that it's expected that if this is allowed, like one of the speakers stated, they will have their own liability insurance. The borough will not be held liable if this is allowed, if there is an incident. I am more comfortable in moving this forward. And with that, as the newest assembly member, I just also would like to state that in these incidents, I appreciate conversation, I appreciate discussion, and if anything ever feels like it's pushed through and needs to be reconsidered, I hope that other assembly members can feel comfortable reaching out and discussing that with me if needed in the future. So with that, I will close my comments.
Okay, so now that was just on the motion for reconsideration. Is there further discussion on reconsideration? Okay, is there any objection?
Madam Mayor?
Yes, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to reiterate what Mr. Bowles said, that it felt like a rushed discussion late at night, the last meeting, a very busy meeting, and I would definitely support reconsideration of this.
Okay. Any other discussion on the reconsideration motion? Assemblyperson Fano, go ahead.
So reconsideration will open up back for discussion and for people to vote again, correct?
Mm-hmm. So is there any objection to reconsidering this, the motion on this ordinance?
Yes, this is Dee, and I object.
Okay, all right.
If I can get the members in the room to go ahead and vote.
So a yes means you support the reconsideration, and a no means that you don't. Is that correct?
Correct. Assemblymember
Thank
McKee.
No.
Assemblymember Bernier. Assemblymember.
Yes.
Thank you. Assemblymember Sumner.
Yes.
Madam Mayor, it is passed with Assembly Member, sorry, I've got to look in two different places. Assembly Member Fonoff and Assembly Member McKee opposed.
Okay. And so now we're headed back to the main motion. Does anybody want to discuss the main motion? Yes, Assemblyperson Bowles, go ahead.
So now I move to accept ordinance 25, no.
Main motion was made at the previous meeting, so all it is up for discussion. Main
Up for
motion
discussion.
is
Okay,
on
so
the
the
floor
motion is
already.
still on the floor.
Correct.
Okay, so may I speak to it? Okay,
Sure.
so
Go ahead.
So with part of the discussion that I remember is that there was concerns with alcohol, and I am of the opinion that alcohol is, we don't have prohibition in our country and in our state and in our borough. Now, what we do need to be concerned with is our liability issues. That was my main concern last time is I didn't feel comfortable that we were covered, at least in my mind, that there was enough information for me to feel comfortable with that moving forward. And I agree. I've been to the Guns and Hoses games. I try to go every year, and he's correct. There's alcohol every time. And he's a retired trooper. If he states he hasn't seen any incidents, I believe him. Speaking with other people, as far as this. It will be a revenue source for the borough, so that's worth considering as well. So I don't think we need to consider this as a topic of do we regulate behavior. I think we need to consider this as a topic of making sure that we are covered, and will this increase our fiscal note? And I think that it will do both. I think we're covered legally, and I think it will increase our fiscal note. So I think it's a good thing to consider. Thank you.
Okay. Assemblyperson Fonoff, go ahead.
I guess the question is, how does that impacts our revenue? Do we get a cut? Because I don't think that's part of the deal. What's your reason of thinking that somehow we get more revenue out of this?
Sure. Yep. So if we were to vote this down, we will not get the same traffic. We just won't. The same thing is at the Government Peak Chalet. If we move to remove the ability for people to have alcohol at weddings and those sorts of things, people aren't going to book. So it'll be a loss of a revenue source.
Okay, further discussion?
Is the
Madam Mayor?
I want to finish the thought. There was a comment that was brought up, like a liquor, like hard liquor versus beer and wine. Is there maybe a question to attorney with passes, depending the kind of alcohol is being served? Does that, who gets to dictate it? The person who's serving it, people who's renting a venue, or what is defines? Is because I know in the restaurant business there was a difference between the hard liquor and the beer and wine license. How does that currently, if it was to allowed, like let's say at the chalet, can you give me a little bit more understanding, please?
I don't think we have any discrimination on what the patron does. You know, our role would be to make sure that they have the proper licensing under the Alaska statutes. The people that are doing the serving have the proper training and credentials to serve alcohol. They have steps in place to make sure they don't serve or allow to be passed off to people under the age of 21. And of course, they carry a healthy dose of liability insurance and very strong defense and indemnification language. The category of alcohol, I don't know that that's anything that's addressed currently in the chalet. I'm looking at the community development director who's shaking her head no, which to me means we're in agreement. There's no limitation right now on what we do in terms of saying, well, you can have 12% wine but not 15% wine or something like that. We don't currently administratively don't have that distinction.
Okay, so we wouldn't be able to put those things in place because I do think there is difference between those categories. That's why the state treats it a lot differently, but we just don't have it on other ones. But would that open up, make things more complicated if we passed it with amendment that it's a beer and wine allowance for that facility?
I don't know.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Yes, Assemblyperson Bowles, go ahead.
Yes, so I think that's a valid question, and I agree. So I think that's actually controlled through AMCO office, the Alcohol Marijuana Control Office in the Department of Commerce. And so I think there are different levels of temporary licensures that you can purchase. I don't have those in memory, but I think you can purchase just a beer or wine or full temporary 24-hour or 48. And I think that also with that, you have to prove that you're insured. So all of that, I believe, removes everything from the borough. And it's basically that the person would rent the ice rink or rent the chalet. And then all of that is separate from the borough. Now that all belongs to that person that's renting, and it falls on them, from my understanding. And I could be wrong, but it's my understanding.
Okay. Further discussion, Assemblyperson Nowers, go ahead.
I do have a comment, but I think, did Max I thought he wanted to say something, so I don't know if you want to let him go first. I think we forgot him.
Yeah, I think he did. Sorry about that. Assemblyperson Sumner?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to say that,
Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that, the bona fides for Mr. Doug Massey, who testified, are, I consider him probably the greatest subject matter expert we have on this ordinance. He is a retired trooper. He owns a venue, and he organizes hockey events. And as Mr. Bowles said, what the liability increases are going to be, they carry their own insurance, and there's been, no events with the guns and no bad incidences from the guns and hoses events. I think that this is almost a no-brainer because of the benefits it has to commerce, and events in the Big Lake Lions Club. Yeah. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else online that wanted to? No?
Yes, this is Dee. Am I a go?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, thanks. I disagree with Mr. Sumner that this is a no-brainer because I've given it a lot of thought, and I cannot accept the responsibility as a borough of being a bartender. And if you can do hard liquor, soft liquor, wine, and why not marijuana because it's legal? And then you got these kids out there looking at this stuff, and I cannot put the two of them together. You don't have to have something to drink or something to smoke, and I've done both. So I don't object on the basis of my own personal consumption, but I believe firmly in setting an example for kids. Guess what? You can have fun without drinking or smoking. You really can. I think it sends a terrible message, and I appreciate Massey, the police officer. Just because they haven't had any doesn't mean that there's some that couldn't have happened. So that's the other thing. We keep saying liability. I'm not interested in liability when some kid is led down the primrose path or hurt because somebody was because the borough was allowed to be a bartender here. I cannot bring myself to do that. And I agree with Terry Gorlick. Yep, Jesus drank wine. A whole different context. You're not going to ride a mule so fast that you're going to smash into somebody if you're a little bit loaded. But you know what? Times have changed. So yes, Jesus drank. That doesn't mean that it has any effect with me anyway on this. I just simply cannot bear the idea that I could be a bartender and run into some former student at a hockey game and say, this is what we do. This is what adults do. I don't think that this is what adults have to do. My two bets, I'm voting, I'm same as I voted before. Thank you.
Assemblyperson Nowers.
Thank you. I think I was comfortable with this before because I was familiar with the process of getting insurance and having the TAPS server. So, to Assemblymember Bowles' point, I was already I do that. And as a condition of the rental, you have to provide proof of your insurance and proof you've got the TAP, you've got everything, your ducks in a row. So I was more comfortable with the issue of, are we covered from liability? I think Mr. Bowles laid it out pretty well. The only thing I would add to what he said was there's also these community events that are happening there that are, kind of central to the community and provide a community service. And I guess Ms. McKee, to your point, should know. I guess I just fundamentally don't see these kinds of events as promoting unsafe, the kind of drinking you don't want kids to do. I think our society's decided that we're not going to do a prohibition and that it is okay to drink in moderation. I think these kinds of events that happen at these facilities are, a person having a beer while they're doing it. I don't have the same level of concern because of the guidelines in place and the history. And, I think also the officer's testimony is powerful because they deal with the outfall from drunken driving. So I think if there had been examples of that, he would have spoken up in a heartbeat because he's seen that. So for that reason, I'll be supporting this.
Assemblyperson Gamble, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to add on to what Assemblymember Nauer said. I've attended many, many functions at the Big Lake Lions Club, from wedding parties to celebrations of life to political events, and there's always been alcohol served at those. I've never seen anybody get out of control. I've never heard of any problems after these events. So what retired Trooper Massey said, I believe. I've just never seen that happen. We've asked our employees at the borough to try and make our facilities, hopefully break even and maybe even make a profit. And now we're going to tie their hands. And what Assemblymember Bowles said is very correct, that if we take away the ability to have beer and wine or alcohol at these events that are scheduled at any of our facilities, people are just going to go someplace else. They're going to go, to another facility where they can actually have alcohol at their event. So I hope that we pass this ordinance tonight and that we let our employees do their job and make sure that whoever rents these venues and serves alcohol does it responsibly. Thank you.
Assemblyperson Fano.
I might be on the minority side of things, but Ms. Mickey, you brought a lot of good points. I think it's, and I think I see where the numbers are landing when Mr. Bowles reconsider, unless Mayor Edna thinks otherwise. We almost got free building. People needs to have a place where they can come together because it's important to them, and then kids need more playing time on ice. And that was kind of sold without voters' approval. We've gotten ourselves something, but now all of a sudden it shifted, like that building cannot operate, or it's going to be a drag if people cannot serve alcohol there, so therefore they're not going to rent. That is kind of, I think it's disingenuous to our people. My position's not going to change on that, and although maybe I'm on the losing end of this argument, but I just hope that makes a little bit of argument.
Assemblyperson Gamble.
Thank you. I just want to address that, and I'm not saying that people aren't going to rent the ice. And at the Big Lake Lions Club, and I know you've been there, right? You've visited it. The venue is upstairs. It's completely separate from where the ice rink is and where the kids actually are playing hockey and whatever else they're playing, soccer, indoor soccer, whatever. And so, there is a complete separation of the building. So I don't think it's disingenuous to say that you're going to lose all rentals. All I'm saying is that you're going to lose some rental for venues that would normally serve alcohol. I think that the ice time is still going to get rented. I think in the summertime, if there's no ice, there's still going to be people playing soccer indoors and pickleball and whatever. But we will lose revenue. We will lose some marketability of the facility if the people that would normally go there and have events have to go someplace else because they can't have alcohol served there. Thank you.
If you're honest in what you described, then I challenge you now to make an amendment that will only promote the alcohol or allow alcohol be served in the venue, but not the ice. But I think that's not going to happen. So I'm just saying, if that was the case, I would even support you on that. But I do think there's two different settings in that building: the ice, which we promote as the kids need to play for families and things like that, and for schools. But there's event side to it, and I understand. And for that, I would support you, actually.
Okay. Further discussion?
Yeah, somebody used the word disingenuous, I think it was Dimitri. and I did, and then Bill used the same word, that applies in as much as, certainly for me, I do not recall ever being, when we were first considering this, being presented with information about it being kind of like a bar on the side. If I had, I would have spoken up then. So it's kind of a shock to me to find out that something that to me was a good, clean, all-American sport has to have drinking. Just got to do it. And that, as again, I won't say any more because I'm going to probably, I've been on 6-1 before on the assembly, and I don't care. But what I do care about is that my principals say, I've worked all my life with kids, and I know the effect that adult behavior has on their kids and other kids, and it's huge. And I'm not going to promote it. I will not be a party in it. So thanks very much.
Further discussion? Well, I've been thinking quite a bit about this tonight, and what I'm going to say, I'm going to try to say as gentle as I possibly can, but I know there's some people that are going to be offended. I know that the community of Big Lake has looked at that Big Lake Lions Center as theirs, and it was run by a private organization. Now that building is owned by every citizen in the Mat-Su borough, every taxpayer. So maybe it's things that have happened in the past, it will not be able to be happened there. Somebody talked about political things. I don't know if we allow political things. Have we allowed political things? I know, like for Palmer City Library, you can't rent that space for political or religious things. Do we have anything like that? I'm looking at the attorney for those that are online.
I don't know what the city of Palmer does, but I can tell you that if you choose to rent out spaces that are generally available to the public, you cannot discriminate based upon the content. So if somebody wants to have a political rally in the borough gym, they get to, because generally the legal rule nationwide is if you have a place of public accommodation and you say, oh, you have to have, your rental fee and the proper insurance, and you got to be clean and respectful and everything, as long as everybody does that, but you can't really discriminate based upon the content of what it is people are doing.
Okay. All right. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that there may be some events that people will come and want to use that facility that will not be pleasing to the Big Lake community. But since it now is owned by the borough and we can't discriminate, those things may be happening. So I hope everybody understands that. It is the fact that the people in the Butte own that building just as much as somebody does in Big Lake or in Trapper Creek. And that's has changed. And I'm sorry, because I think there are people that will have not realized that, and they have done things for many years that may not be acceptable to this assembly or to the public. So, further discussion by anybody? Okay, I think we have some objections, so we're going to have them more. Madam Clerk.
If I can get the members in the room to go ahead and vote. Assemblymember Bernier.
No.
Assemblymember Sumner. Assemblymember Sumner.
Yes.
Assemblymember McKee.
Well, I'm thinking no, then that means that I don't want the bar in there. Is that right? 'Cause then it's a
No,
no.
you're voting on the main motion.
Which is?
The main motion
We
is
want
to
to serve
adopt the
alcohol there.
ordinance.
Okay, so I'm a no.
Madam Mayor, it has passed with Assemblymember Fonoff, Bernier, and McKee opposed.
Okay, thank you. Now, the next thing on our agenda is Mayor, Assembly, and staff comments. So, Mr. Attorney, comments?
Oh, it's lonely over here tonight. It's like this big long space. I feel like I'm in the timeout box. No, everybody have a good night. Thank you.
So let me go online. Assemblyperson McKee, parting comments? She might be gone. Okay.
back to her.
Okay. Oh, there she is. Go ahead.
Am I there?
Yeah, go ahead, ma'am.
Hi. Just was telling, I was just telling Nick that space is not that big and wide. That's the space I normally occupy, and I just lost 20 pounds. But aside from that, I appreciate everybody's comments, and we disagree, but we all get along afterwards. It's just that to me, this is being a teacher 26 years and seeing the impact of addictive substances on kids. It is horrific to me. So that's why I vote the way I do. Thank you very much.
Deputy Mayor, parting comments?
Thank you everyone for coming out. I hope to see you guys soon. Thank you, Lord, for bringing us all together, helping us to do your will, Lord. Please bless the valley, bless the state, bless our country. In Jesus' name, amen.
Assemblyperson Sumner, parting comments?
No comments from me. Thank you very much.
Okay. Assemblyperson Nowers, parting comments?
Yeah, thank you. A few things. Assemblymember McKee, thank you for those comments. That's so true. You know, I really appreciate all the input I get up here, and we disagree, but we're trying to work through things. So I appreciate those comments. On the libraries, if in the manager's report, we could also get some maybe circulation numbers or however those are counted for book checkouts and, you know, over time, whatever makes sense to show the use of our libraries. I just want to give a shout out to the manager and all the staff for, it was briefly mentioned, the almost $13 million for Safe Streets for All, for the federal dollars coming into us. That's almost a mill's worth that the local residents are not going to have to pick up for roads. That's a really great thing to have as we're struggling to find the dollars to pay for all the roads that we need out here. And then on the lot size, I think this is a process thing with the assembly, but I know in their note to us, the Plating Commission said, we don't have enough information on this, and and we want some time to look at it. And I looked back at what they received, and they basically got the proposal and a state restatement of the borough's land use policies that talk about protecting public use, health, safety, and welfare. And that's really not, that's not much information for them to go on. And I know we've talked about this before, and I'd like to talk to the clerk about a sheet that goes to the Planning Commission and the Plating Commission that explains what problem you're trying to solve. Just some basic, what you're proposing, what the problem you're trying to solve, and how this would do it, and any other information you want to give as the proposer, because I think we rely on these knowledgeable boards, and it's not a good process if we don't give them enough information to give us good feedback. And so I also wanted to ask the clerk, is there any prohibition on the assembly or anybody else sending information to you that, or the appropriate person, that can then be shared with the plating board?
You're referring to assembly members sending me information?
Yes.
To send to the plating board?
Yeah.
I don't believe there's anything that would stop you guys from doing that. It is a public record, and it would need to be made a public record.
Okay. And that would be the appropriate way to do it, as opposed to violating any
You
rule,
need
I
to
think.
if you're just providing information, that would be better than providing an opinion, because you have not voted on the main motion on that yet.
Okay.
And you need to be listening to public hearing and comments before you've made your decisions. That's how those things are supposed to work.
Okay. And I was mostly thinking of sponsors of legislation, like in addition to a referral sheet.
Madam Mayor?
Yeah.
Can I finish?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So I'm hoping that the sponsor might be able to provide some of that information to the planning board. And I will just say this for the record, because now I'm not going to violate any Open Meeting Act rule to mention the things I am thinking about on this legislation, which is how it can be made so we make sure we're not leaving homeowners holding the bag for any costs of it being done wrong, or left high and dry because their aquifers their wells have dried up because of too much use. And, I know there's areas of this borough that have lots of water. There's others. I know somebody just drilled a 300-foot well to get to 4 gallons a minute in Farm Loop and Lazy Mountain. And I didn't see anything in the legislation that accounted for areas where we struggle with aquifers. So those are a couple things I'm thinking about. I just wanted to say those on the record and give folks a chance to address those. And then I will just, if the sponsor feels like it, I think the plating board was looking for more information on just kind of the background of the sponsor's thoughts. And I know he was trying to get to affordable housing, so I think it's a chance to explain that too. So thank you.
Do you want to go now or do you want to go last?
Assemblymember Sumner wanted to talk.
Yeah, he wanted to say something.
Oh, Assembly members.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, go ahead. I thought he already
I was just
said
going to
that.
respond as that ordinance's sponsor. I did hear that from the plating board as well. I read those comments and I was planning on going to the plating board meeting to explain the ordinance.
Okay, well, I think if we're going to end up with a couple more people there, we better advertise it. How many assembly people are planning to go in, right?
Madam Mayor, I would recommend that you do not have a quorum at the plating board. These are things that the assembly is going to be able to take action on in the future. Would be not a good idea, I don't believe, even if we advertise that there could be a quorum.
Okay.
Madam Mayor, if there's concern, I'm not planning on going to the planning board. I'm glad to hear that Mr. Sumner's going to go.
Okay. Is there a problem, though, if we have 2 or 3 assembly people giving information and plus one showing up or anything in violation? Because, go
Assembly
ahead.
members, while it's unusual and should not be done frequently, assembly members have a First Amendment right to speak to the plating board, even though they don't have to listen to them. I mean, the plating board's acting in an advisory capacity at this point, but
Right.
people have the right to go and talk. If more than 3 show up, though, I agree with the clerk. A, it shouldn't happen, and B, if you do, somebody should walk out of the room.
Has it been a practice for assembly people to go and speak to our advisory boards on behalf of something they are supporting? Has it,
Well, I
is
would
that
ask,
of something?
I mean,
Huh?
both the manager and the clerk work here too. They can weigh in. I don't think so.
Madam Mayor,
Yeah,
I
that's
think
right, Mike. Come on
I
now.
do believe it's happened maybe once.
It doesn't happen
Before
often.
or twice, but it's not something that happens regularly.
Okay, so I know Assemblyperson Sumner, you said you were going to go quote and explain, or I'm going to use the word justify your ordinance. I don't know. To me, that's a little bit shaky ground because it's going to come back to the assembly for further action. So that's my comment to you. Do you want to talk now or you want to wait till the end? Okay, go ahead. For parting comments.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll be brief. Just wanted to bring to the Assembly's attention, I believe that the governor had asked AGDC to take a look at tax framework for the pipeline, for AKLNG. So we met with the other affected boroughs where the pipeline traverses their land as well, and or across their jurisdiction. And so that conversation started today. The legislative session obviously kicks off soon. There has been some, talk about there may be a bill introduced that reduces the mill rate for the pipeline to a lower number than what is traditional for other oil and gas infrastructure. So I just wanted to let you know that we are participating in that conversation. If you are thinking about things or have questions, I do have a presentation I can share from today's meeting that talks about a couple of different frameworks. In a very general sense, it looks like a reduced tax rate or a PILT, a payment in lieu of taxes, are probably the 2 more likely options. The reason I bring this to your attention is if you want to start discussing that, asking questions, thinking about that, understanding what that impact may look like, please reach out to me. It's very likely we will put the proposals in front of you at the first meeting and second meeting in February. because it's going to be important that the assembly take a position that can be provided to the legislature or to the administration. And it's a big topic, obviously. Fairbanks, North Star Borough will weigh in, Denali Borough will weigh in, Kenai Peninsula Borough will weigh in. The Alaska Municipal League will probably have an opinion about this, and then the North Slope Borough. So I've mentioned the 5 boroughs that are directly involved, and then there's an unorganized borough in between, that the state will have to represent or someone. But I just want to bring that to your attention. So if you want to have those conversations, you want to have a meeting with Cheyenne, the attorney, and myself, we're happy to sit down. We can do that individually and just kind of bring you up to speed on what we know so that you're not trying to digest this all at one time in February when we're trying to talk through different options and you're going to be asked to essentially pass a resolution to provide some direction to us as staff, but also something that we can provide to Juneau. So I just wanted to call that to your attention. So that gives us some time over the next few weeks to start those discussions so it doesn't feel rushed, although it's still going to feel a little rushed in February. That's all, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Madam Clerk, parting comments, okay. Assemblyperson Bowles, parting comments?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So am I able to speak to ordinance 02-102 or now that it's going to the planning board?
Right now, you mean?
Correct.
Yeah, as far as I know, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
So I had many, I think probably at least 24, maybe 30 people from District 1 reach out to me and outside the district in opposition to this. And that I actually thought that I didn't realize that we were only going to be discussing the resolution. So I have serious concerns with this. There is language in the Department of I believe it's environmental conservation. It might be natural resources that covers septic systems and wells. And we do have experts in the audience, and I think those are very serious. They are worth considering, and I think it's important to us to be representative of the residents in our districts and to consider the feedback that we are receiving as an assembly on these things. Besides the wells and septics, one of the biggest concerns is that we are the Mat-Su Borough, and people move out here to put distance in between themselves. And the smaller we make lots, the more and more we become Anchorage. And so I would like, if possible, my fellow assembly members to consider those types of things. Is how much do we want to create ordinances or code that allows others to infringe upon our fellow residents? So as to the libraries, I've heard this multiple times now, this concept of manufactured concerns. Last meeting, we had a father with I believe a 4-year-old, 5-year-old child here that talked about his child walked into a library and reached for a book that was blatantly, that had homosexual sex very clearly on the cover and inside the book. Mm-hmm. That's not manufactured. And that was at hand level of a 4 or 5-year-old child. I at least once a week, I have somebody from District 1 reach out to me and say, thank you, please continue. We have issues. So this is not a manufactured concept. This is not a manufactured concern. People have concerns. People don't want things that have to deal with sex and that type of things in libraries that are operated by the borough. And that's fair. They're taxpayers. They're the ones that are buying these books, and they're the ones that are paying the salaries of the employees that are running these facilities. And I agree with them. I agree with free speech, but this isn't a free speech issue. This is a borough entity and taxpayer issue. And so I will continue to represent District 1 in this regard to those listening. So this isn't manufactured. This is real. Your fellow residents have concerns. And so it's going to continue. And so I appreciate 2 assembly members feeling like they could come to me and have a discussion about something and ask me to reconsider. I hope that we feel that we all can do that, even if we disagree, because we're not always going to agree. But we do need to discuss. We need to have those conversations. I appreciate, as the newest member of the assembly, my fellow assembly members coming to me and saying, hey, think about this and this, and make sure you consider OMA and those sorts of things. So thank you all very, very much for keeping me in check and having those conversations with me. Thank you.
I would just warn you, if two assembly people come to you and say something X that's on the agenda, and then you nonchalantly run into another assembly person or another assembly person, you have violated the open meetings law.
Yes.
So,
Understood. These were two separate assembly members for two separate ordinances and in line.
Yeah,
So-
yeah.
So thank you, Madam Mayor.
yeah. Okay, Assemblyperson Gamble. I'm
Thank
being
you,
strict
Madam Mayor.
mother here
Boy, you are
tonight.
cracking the whip tonight, aren't you? I appreciate that. And I just wanted to say to the manager, please, never again 3 long presentations in one meeting. Thank you. Thank you very much. And to Assemblymember McKee, D, thank you very much for your comments. One thing I've learned pretty quick around here is not to take anything personal. And I appreciate everybody's input. It, like Assemblymember Bowles said, it helps me make decisions about how I'm going to look at things and vote on things. And I've had people on this assembly say things to me or in these meetings that have actually changed my mind about certain things. So I appreciate everybody's input. I try not to take it personal. And Assemblymember Bowles said something earlier, and I just wanted to reemphasize it. I had a wise old legislator that I worked for years ago who told me, Bill, when you become a legislator, you get to vote your way one time, and that's when you step into the polling booth. He goes, other than that, you represent your constituents. And if you remember that, you'll do okay. And so whenever I'm trying to decide about an issue, and even after the last meeting when the ordinance was voted down, I was okay with that. I mean, if that's how this body decides we're going to roll and it doesn't go my way, that's just the way it's going to be. And I appreciate everybody's input, and I appreciate everybody on this assembly. Thank you.
Assemblyperson Fauna, parting comments?
I had to look an agenda if after we do the reconsiderations, if the veto part before or after. I guess it was before, so just to see where the schedule. I would like to ask a lot of people watch online and sometimes they want to go back to watching it. If we could ask manager or our IT department, maybe put like timestamps in the future where it's audience participation, things like that. I don't think we. Oh, she's already raising her hand. Go ahead.
That's Facebook. Granicus are time-stamped. You're not going to be able to timestamp video streams on Facebook, but Granicus is timestamps. That's what Brenda's doing here.
Okay. Well, I know on YouTube, there's people. That's probably the easiest one to stream on. There's fairly easy to put stamps, even if it's after fact. So when you're watching, you know where the public comes, things like that. I don't think that's too much to ask. That's all I have. I'm gonna stop there. I'm not gonna go any further.
So any other parting comments? Other people thought of something they wanted to say? Okay, we do not have an executive session, and we are adjourned at 9:28. Well, Mr. Attorney, we did it before 10 for you.